Yeah, we're live now. And it usually plays the intro video, but I had to stop that because yesterday I played the intro video and it kept playing over and over and over again. It played like five times. So it's like stuff like that happens. And I'll explain to you what happened in a second. But hey, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Typical Skeptic Podcast. I have my good friend with me, Black Uni Gryphon, and I know her name's Kandice. I know her a couple different ways. Like I first met her because we are both fans and friends with Mark from Forever Conscious Research, and we both highly value his research on the Soul Trap, and also Dan from the Overwatch Project. So we're both kind of in that circle. But then I kind of started this group of women that kind of became friends, which was like Kandice, Michelle Whitney, who comes on, and Amy and Vanna. And we're friends that way too. So, me and Kandice have become friends a lot of ways. But let me tell you a little bit more about Kandice. She's a researcher of everything, Soul Trap, ancient history, reality shifting, everything she does. Everything she does is so interesting. She brings advanced insights on timelines, sovereignty, spiritual freedom. She can even get into geopolitics. I mean, she's very intelligent. I would say Kandice is more intelligent than a lot of people I know. I mean, she's very intelligent. Sometimes she blows me away with what she knows. And sometimes I find it honestly a little bit intimidating because
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's totally cool. It's a compliment. And I'm really happy to have you here, Kandice. It's good to see you. How are you?
Good. I was having some fatigue, but I'm feeling better. My husband juiced a whole bunch of oranges that we had and put some lime in it, and I felt a lot better after that. But I just had a big, huge weekend. I don't know if people know this, but I'm a professional Pokemon Go player, and I had a huge event in Boston. And it's funny because a lot of the stuff that happened is stuff that's connected to some of the things I'm going to talk about tonight. And I've been having a little weird synchronicity type things going on with me. And I ran into somebody completely by what seemed like accident, but now it almost seems like fated. I was playing some music that I like, which isn't very known or popular here in the United States, but that might change. And I just happened to be playing it on my old phone because I didn't want to ruin my battery on my regular phone. And this guy comes up to me and he's like, "Oh my God, are you playing Scooter?" And I was like, yeah. And I didn't think it was, I thought I was like, "Oh no, am I in trouble? Is he going to tell me to turn it down?" Because Pokemon people usually it's cartoon music and Japanese music, right? And so then he starts talking to me and he tells me, I happen to be personally friends with HP Baxter. And I was like, "Are you kidding me? I don't believe you. You're lying." And then it turns out HP Baxter is the main guy in charge of the band Scooter from Germany. His name's Hans. He has a lot of nicknames. And he's the main voice or vocal that you'll hear in the songs by Scooter. They're a huge icon of the 90s, especially in Europe and Germany and the UK. And so he starts talking to me. It turns out he was the head guy of the whole event. I also was in the ambassador program for my town a few years ago, but it just kind of didn't work out. And then he happened to be friends with all of my friends. And it was this weird synchronistic moment. And then we just kept running into each other, right? And the thing is, a lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about tonight, I'm going to mostly talk about reality shifting, which is a new thing. Well, it's not new. It's actually been around especially since the pandemic. And with that, there are other things that I've been kind of also studying, and they kind of all blend together. It's funny how many things kind of blend together. And one of the things I was doing is called the Silva method, and I was very passively doing it last month. So a lot of times I think a lot of people who are more seasoned meditation type persons, you're probably familiar with things like monkey mind or your mind is just so busy. And I'm that kind of person, right? Or I have a lot of things going on in my mind. And when you're getting into more Eastern meditation, where it's you're calming your mind, quieting your mind, and just calming down, you a lot of times you get into what's called beginner mind, right? And you come up against the monkey mind. I have monkey mind. And I've done this before. I've done meditation my whole life. I've done it since I was a teenager. And when I was doing Silva method stuff, I would just play like there's a short clip of Jose Silva talking about like a really short meditation. It's a very short clip. How long is it? Maybe like 10 minutes or something. And I decided instead of trying to just full on go into it, I would just passively do it. And then throughout the month, every few days or so, I would play it. And I was like, because if I try to go too hard, it's like my mind will like resist it. But if I like ease myself into it over time, because this is how you can tell I've been through meditation stuff a lot in my life, that I eventually it'll click in and then I can take it. Then my mind is like not fighting it. And even though my mind was like going elsewhere, or I had other things in my mind, I had a lot of pressure, a lot of prep for that big event or whatever, I didn't realize that it was actually doing stuff. Because what it's doing is putting you into like alpha and theta and these different like wavelengths of your brain. See, he knows it. He knows it, right? And with Silva, people who do Silva method, especially people who've done it for years, they report things like weird synchronicities and things that like it's just mind-blowing, or you just have like weird sudden insights, or weird, like I started having like in my mind, I'd have like a flash in my mind and I would see something and then I would know like where to find the shiny Pokemon, because that's kind of like the big thing for Pokemon Go is like you're hunting for shiny Pokemon, especially on a big event like this. And oh my goodness, that was happening. And I didn't realize this until like yesterday. I watched, what is his name? Ken Kosha or something. He's got a channel. He actually worked and was trained by Jose Silva. And I watch a whole bunch of different content by different creators who are doing in the shifting community. Now, shifters, they oftentimes are called shift talkers or hashtag shift talk, like TikTok, but shift talk. And what's so fascinating about this, I just love it so much, is that young people are not you're not stuck inside of a box. They don't have their humanity beaten out of them yet. They're hopeful. They're still figuring themselves out. So they don't know that there's a box. They don't know that there's any limits because no one has imposed not that many on them yet. And so during the pandemic, during lockdown, all these kids were looking for things like escapism. And I know a lot of times there are a lot of like people who decry them and make fun of them or whatever. And they'll say like, oh, they're just escapists. But a lot of those people who kept up with it have become like masters of shifting. And basically you put your mind, you just move your mind or shift parts of your consciousness to another reality, and you can build that reality, you can create that reality, you can script that reality. It's whatever you want it to be. You make rules. I have my own script right here. Here's mine right here. And I don't know if you can see this symbol.
Yeah.
That is the shifting.
Reminds me of a sigil, you know?
Yeah, so that's their logo for shifters. And if you want to look into it, you can. I just want to say it because there was a huge to-do this year about like subliminals, and I want to give some caution on that because I don't want to lead anybody into some bad stuff. There are known creators, and you have to do your research, that I don't recommend trying to do shifting with subliminals because people who label them for reality shifters have been putting bad things in the subliminal audio, and it will cause you to get blocked, cause you to have a problem, and you don't even need a subliminal. If you do want to hear some audio, I recommend 6 hertz theta. Okay. And also, Rob has been fascinated with this topic since I've been bringing it up for the past few months. Because, like you said, Rob, you find yourself when you go to sleep in some other reality and you're stuck there for some prolonged period of time. And what are you doing in there?
Yeah, really. Yeah, I know. It makes me think that maybe I've been doing something like this, like unknowingly, you know, or like maybe we all do this to a certain point, but like it's like becoming lucid and like, you know, and then commanding it, like you're saying, like, you know, writing it into existence. Like you're scripting the reality and you're writing it into existence. So you do what you want as compared to, you know, something that maybe the Matrix is putting in your mind, you know, like the Matrix might be in my mind about like I'm on a dairy farm or something, or I'm, you know, being chased down by criminals or something. But like you're saying, you can script your own reality.
You can script it. And then because we have so many people that we know that we've been talking with and having different types of conversations, we have SSP, MyLab, and other ones, right? And they're describing something similar. If we could get people who are victims of that, because there is a lot of other stuff I've found out too. Like there's things called dream walkers. Dream walkers are beings, or sometimes it could even be other human beings, who can go into other people's dreams. And there's good and bad. So there's like the invading kind where they take over and like it's kind of like almost like Inception or something. And then there's like the nice kind or a friendly kind or fun kind. You know what I mean? Well, if a lot of these victims of like SSP or whatever, if they learned how to do scripting and they focused on this, you could script yourself powers. You could script yourself that you could break the rules. You could that you're invincible, that you could leave that reality, or that you could depower take someone else's power away. Do you know what I mean? There's so many things about this that is so exciting. You can design it, and you don't have to believe in anything. You don't have to believe in gods. You don't have to believe in angels. You don't have to believe in anything. There are people who are complete anti-theists who can do this, okay? There are people who even do it with doubts. You can have doubts and shift. And I have been studying this. I started studying this in 2023, right? And the reason I got into it was because Mark from Forever Conscious Research, he had recommended me to learn lucid dreams. And then I kept coming into this reality shifting thing. And at first I thought it was like manifester stuff, which, by the way, that's another thing. So right now we're in what's called the CR or OR. CR means current reality, or OR, original reality. This is kind of like your anchor point. Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's different views over how it works or what it's working. I don't believe in clones. A lot of people believe in like you're in some other reality and there's a clone of you. I don't necessarily believe that, but some people are adamantly believing in that. And if you can think it, if you can imagine, it's kind of ironic because like if you read like reality transurfing stuff, like this is the Tufti book by Vadim Zealand. He literally talks about everything as a script, and you can just change that script. You choose the script and then you let it play, right? And that's for the CR. But for reality shifting, you're just designing it. It's like a hybrid of what's called dream incubation, which is something I used to do since I was like around 12 years old. You put a seed in your mind of what you want to do, what you want to dream about. But instead of it being a dream, because when you're dreaming like a regular dream, it kind of just plays out on its own like a script, right? Like you don't really, and you're not really aware. Whereas like reality shifting, which is different than a lucid dream, because lucid dream is you wake up and then you realize you're dreaming and then you take over. You just use your mind and you just think whatever you want. But in a reality shifting, like it is so real. You could fart. You could you could get diarrhea. You could, unless you script that out. You could give yourself superpowers. You could, it's anything. The most popular things, and it's funny because they all talk about it as a spiritual practice today, right? Probably because they've been doing it for so long, but it doesn't have to be spirit. It could be whatever you want it to be. It could be like a game to you. Do you know what I mean? And there are people who also script themselves to forget what they wrote so that they can just experience the shift, the whole DR. And you can stay there for days, weeks, months. And there are people who have gone to Hogwarts. Hogwarts is the most popular one. Hogwarts is so popular that it's actually easier to go there. Probably, this is my theory. My theory is the reason why it's so popular is because it's so easy, and it's so easy because it's popular. It's like a paradox, right? It's like an actual structure that that human minds have created over the past several years, and that it's easier to get there. It's easier to go there. And you can script it however you want. If you want to go to Hogwarts and you don't want to be an 11-year-old, you could change it to a university. If you want to, like I scripted, my script is pretty big right here. I scripted my grandmother in it. I scripted people I worked with, people I went to college with, people I went to high school with, people I went to middle school with, just certain ones. And I changed their ages. You can do that. If you want to change your appearance, you could do. I kept myself generally how I am now, but there's people who change their eye color or their skin color, their hair color, or whatever. I also scripted in, like for me to go to Hogwarts, that's exciting, but without an art department, that's boring as hell. So I scripted in a whole art department. I called it the AAD, the Advanced Arts Department. I gave myself a huge scholarship, and I gave myself a lot of money. I scripted my own dorm room, like a private dorm room. And you can, like, if you like to use AI, you can get AI to generate the rooms and stuff. You could just go through like what you wanted it to be, and then you just use various techniques or what are called methods. It's very similar to like hypnotic induction and dream incubation. And I have had many times where like I've kind of gone to the wrong place, but I'm also in like the phase where I have like mini shifts. I have what's called symptoms, and there's two kinds. There's symptoms that happen before you're shifting, or it's like, because you have to continue and practice this because it's already happening. It's being built. Your mind is building it and you're already there, but it's like making that connection. Now, some people can instantly shift their first time. Not everyone. Usually that's not how that works. Like most meditations and practices, it's usually not how that happens, but it could. Okay. And it also doesn't matter if you have brain damage. If you've had brain damage and you had like surgery in your brain, there's no reason to think you can't do it. And also people who have aphantasia, who can't visualize things in their mind, can shift. There's so many ways around it. It's like the power of your mind. You could script stuff, go into your DR, and then when you came back, because it feels like a very long time, and you'll be like, why did this thing or that happen? This thing or that thing happen? And then you go through your script and you're like, oh, I wrote that. Oh, that's why that happened. Also, when you go into your DR means desired reality. It can go wrong. It can go its own way. So you're going to have to learn, you have to script a safe word so that when you want to leave and come back to your body here, you say your safe word. Or you're going to want a switch word, and a switch word is a word that you would use to go to the original thing that you actually scripted. Because a lot of times people who will say their safe word, go home, they're like, damn, I'm trying to get back for 2 months to my DR and I'm struggling to get back. So if you use a switch word, you don't have to come back. You can just switch to the correct timeline or the correct script, right? There's many times where things don't go according to your script, and sometimes it's good. It's not always bad. There's people like I have sat through so many hours of people's, because they usually talk about Hogwarts, right? But other people talk about like MCU, like Marvel Comics, Cinematic Universe, Gotham City, My Hero Academia. It's a lot of anime, cartoon stuff. There's people who go to a DR where they always wanted to pursue like a music career, and so they go into their CR and they have a band there, and they're like, doing their practice. There's things where you can like learn things. Another thing that's super common is called a waiting room. And in a waiting room, it's just like a room that you go to hang out, right? And there you can design it, you can script it, you can have celebrities be there with you, you can have a butler, a maid, you can have TV. And I'm like, there are people who've gone to their waiting room, and they'll hang out there for like a few weeks, and the time feels like just regular passage of time here, but in your body it's not that long. It could be minutes or hours, or you just wake up in the morning. Yeah. So I don't like the whole.
This is like exactly what was happening to me. Like this is it sounds like this is like, but you're saying you can control it. You found ways to control it. Yeah, that's
yeah. I've been probably doing this my whole life, and I just didn't know. I'm so glad I know now that I can control it, because now that I have been focusing, because now I've been using like the handwriting. Like I really feel like having a real tangible book, a real tangible thing in my hand really made a huge difference. But once you've been doing it like a lot, like a few years, a lot of people do it digitally. They'll have like what is it called? Notation or Notion. It's like an app or something, and they'll do that. You can like, for example, I go to Pinterest. I made a whole bunch of images. I have some AI images that I made, as well as other people, and then I would name them. Like for example, I wanted to go. So the original storyline in the books for Harry Potter is starts in 1991. And I was like, awesome, the 90s. I love the 90s. So I researched the music. If you don't want to go to the 90s, you could make it Hogwarts in, 2025 or whatever. You could make it a university if you want it. It's whatever you want it to be. And I looked up the music. I incorporated like Muggle culture, which is like regular people, which, by the way, I didn't know that Muggles in the United States is called Nomad. That I didn't know. I rewatched all the movies. I read the book again. And I just sort of put there's like a video out there of like Harry Potter and like alchemy, like it's alchemy symbols and it's spirituality or whatever. Wow. It's whatever you want. It's whatever you want it to be. So like this blows my mind. And then when I was looking back again into Silva method today and yesterday, Jose Silva, he used a technique which sounds so much like because the people who talk about their results with this technique, it sounds like shifting. It sounds exactly like shifting. So this guy, Napoleon Hill, he had this very famous meditation, which was like a kind of daydream called a board of directors. If people are familiar with his book, I think it's called Think and Grow Rich. And there's different versions of it. That book that's been like, there's a Bush era version, which I didn't like, but whatever. He had a meditation that he would do. He would go into his imagination, and he had a board of directors, and he filled it with like famous, like wise people like Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Edison, and whoever he admired, right? And then when he wanted to consult people, they were his board of directors. He wanted to consult them, be like, "What do you think about this?" And then over time, what was a daydream to him, they just started becoming so real, and they would talk to him, and they would even like disagree over stuff and argue, and they had a life of their own, which sounds just like reality shifting. One of the things that people will say, like, okay, so when you start to look into this, they'll try and tell you it's madness or it's crazy or it's unethical and whatever, because of course they're going to do that. They don't want you to know this, right? They'll say it's maladaptive daydreaming, which fascinatingly is another group of people who do reality shifting. People who have the diagnosis for maladaptive daydreaming actually use their maladaptive daydreaming to shift, and they experience everything everyone else does. It's mind-blowing. I've sat through so many of the podcasts that these kids made, and a lot of these are girls who usually are open. A lot of guys don't like to talk about it on the internet. I don't know if there's a stigma or something, but there's this one girl who only goes by the letter C, and she's very private, but when she talks, she doesn't talk like she's some 20-something kid. She talks like she's old. She talks like someone who's lived so many lives, because she's gone to her so many DRs for what seems like years, like decades. And she's only her body here is only in her 20s. But she's had all that experience in her mind and then brought it back here. So when she talks about things, she's not lying. There's so many videos out there trying to like trash talk this thing, but it is a tool. It's something that you can use. You can use it to learn things. And ironically, the things that the kids were most eager to do was to go to fantasy schools where they were studying things and learning things. Another one is a Jedi. Everybody wanted to train to be a Jedi and have a Jedi teacher. This is mind-blowing to me, because it's like they weren't going to places to like blow up cars or rob banks. They were like, I want to learn to be I want to learn magic. I want to learn to be a Jedi. I want to learn wisdom. Do you know what I mean? This is incredible, awesome stuff. Like, you are always going into some reality where you're milking cows or something, right? It's as if somehow
it's
something wanted, something wanted you to be humble. Yeah. I kept finding myself in these weird versions of reality, like other realities. And like, I would be stuck there for a very long time, like weeks, months. I remember it was boring. I remember one time it was like a guy, it was like this dude, and I was always commuting to this day job in the city, and it was I had to wear like a suit and a tie, and it was just so boring, and then nothing worked right, and it was just so frustrating, and I was like, why is this my life? And then I had other ones that was like a different version of people that I have grown up with in New Jersey. They were, it was like I was in a version of that town. I went to high school and I lived there my last few years in high school, but like the houses were in a slightly different area and the roads were not exactly in the same spot and the signs didn't look exactly the same. And when I was there, didn't really question it. I was just like there, and it was just oftentimes boring. I've had some that are more like the colors are faded and others are more vibrant. That's another thing you can script. If you want to have sunsets be more vibrant, you can script that. And I've had, since I've been actually actively working on it, I keep having like mini shifts. I also have where a recent one I had was I was with I was kind of like I mini shifted. So my friend David, he died, and he a lot of times like hacks into my dreams somehow. And then he does his own, he just sort of, he's like, no, we're doing this. Right. And I was in like this room. It was very nice. And he was showing me like different designs of his body. He's like your big dude. He's like a huge guy. Okay. I think he just likes to be large. That's just how he is. And he was showing me like different versions of his body. He's like, how about this one? How about that one? And I'm just there like, oh, this is cool. And I'm just hanging out with my friend. And there's like a fireplace. And it's like really nice. And then I laid down on this like bed thing, and it was like round, like a circle instead of like a rectangle. And I'm just hanging out there with my friend. And then some chick comes there. I don't know who the heck that is. This kind of happens a lot of times when I have a more very realistic experience with my friend, because it doesn't feel like a dream. Dreams have a more of a dreamy quality. It's so real. It's very real. This chick comes in and she starts talking and she barges in and she just, and I'm like, what the heck is she doing here? And this is so rude. And then eventually I just laughed. Like I just came back to my body. But this is another one of those things, is these dream walker things. I have noticed certain people in the shifting community, they will talk about certain like waiting rooms, or certain, before they get into their actual DR, there will be like these dream walkers. And a lot of times they look like women for some reason. And they try to stop you. They're like, you can't do this or don't do that. And I've had that experience too. It's so real and it's so annoying. I've even had where I've tried to wake myself up because I knew I was dreaming. And then I thought I woke up, but then I was still dreaming. And I'd have like these false starts over and over, like loop again. And it would be all these rude, annoying women, and they would just barge into my house and tell me what to do. And I was like, you can't tell me what to do. You can't tell me what to think. You can't tell me anything. I don't have to do what you tell me. I noticed this kind of thing a lot, where like in dreams or experiences when I'm asleep, certain beings will try and tell me to do something or make me do something, and they can't. The only person who seems to be able to like honestly do what get me to do anything is my friend David. So there's that.
I have a friend who's a dream walker. Her name's Priscilla. She knows how to like walk the realms. Like, yeah, she's
that's cool.
Show, she really, but she's like real advanced in like energy healing too, like
oh wow.
This is insane. So do you think we can actually go to these realities and bring stuff back into this reality? Has anybody done that yet?
Probably. Honestly, like I had some super interesting conversations with Mark recently, like this month and last month. And he was talking about certain kind of meditations where you can like move things with your mind or affect things with your mind. Like it sounds like Jedi stuff. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if you went into like a reality shifting thing, did something there and then applied it here and then might do something. There were some really interesting things that Mark told me. He even practiced them himself. He talked about how he felt like anybody and everybody could probably do this. And that for some people it goes through their head. And then they like get off on their own, like, wow, I did this thing kind of thing, right? I forget what he called it. Like there's psychokinesis, telekinesis, aerokinesis, aquakinesis, pyrokinesis, and like I don't know, there's like other ones. I mean, it sounds like Jedi kind of stuff, right? But
Yeah.
he told me about like various techniques, and I mean, it was very specific. I was really surprised. I was like, "Are you kidding?" He's like, "No." He's like, "You could film it. You could actually do it." I think a lot of times when people try to start something like, because I noticed this with reality shifting, because people will think, "Well, I tried it one time and it didn't work." Yeah, because you only tried it one time. It's like, how many times have you tried? It's just like regular meditation. Like, I used to do my favorite meditation for years. Was a oneness meditation. I actually think I have the book. Where is it? It's this book right here. It's called Awakening Your Psychic Powers by Henry Reed. I think it's from the ARE with Edgar Casey's organization. And basically every time you exhale, you say the word one, or it could be any word you want it. It could have a word you prefer to say. But I would just say the word one, you close your eyes, you breathe out, and you say one, right? And I noticed that, okay, so another thing I totally want to dispel, you can meditate even in a noisy environment. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. If it could be the noisiest environment, you do not need peace and calm or whatever to meditate. If you just do that, even you could be like in Philly, in Center City, you know how like loud it is there. I used to meditate. Yeah, I used to meditate there. Okay. And you'll be surprised what happens. You just have to put the time in. You're not trying to accomplish anything, and then things start happening. And that's kind of like how I started, like sort of going out of my body, and I started experiencing weird things. I also noticed that when I did that, people around me would calm down. So I remember I was on a bus, and I used to do this on the bus ride. So I did a very long commute to and from school, and the kids were super rowdy. And then so I started in early September doing that. And then by mid to late October, everything just became very calm and quiet. And then I noticed everybody else also started, they didn't realize they were doing what I was doing. I would just put my head down, and I put my knees up on the seat in front of me, and it was kind of like in a fetal position. And I felt so sorry for that bus driver because they were rowdy. And I honestly wonder if like your brain waves emit some signal or like wavelength that affects other people. And next thing you know, everybody was quiet. And this just happened over just, from like the first month into October. And then by November, it was just always quiet. And it was as if people looked forward to getting onto the bus, to calming down. And this was the thing that is, a lot of times I feel with a lot of people, is just to calm down, because I'm such a hyper person. And if you can calm down, a lot of these things you can make anything happen. That's also why I recommend Silva method. I recommend reality shifting. Just look into it. Question it. There's many different types of different people have different experiences, and it's a process. There's no set time as to when things will happen, but I definitely also experienced the symptoms in the CR where like so now what happens is, as you've been working on it, you start to get like a lot of people call them angel numbers. You'll also get like synchronicity type stuff. It's crazy. It happens all the time now. Like I'm not even looking for it, and people will walk near me and they'll say stuff like, "Oh, it's 111, make a wish." Like I don't even know them, or I'll be in the store and I'm standing in line, and then people in the store who are like at the cashier will look up and say, "Oh, it's 333, make a wish." Other things you can do is, if you're trying to get to your DR, you can handwrite a letter into your, like, that's why I use like notebooks. A lot of people, like, for first starting, use a notebook. Write a letter to a character in your DR. Like, for example, if you're going to Hogwarts, you would write a letter to Dumbledore or whoever, and say, I hope you get this letter, and I hope this letter finds you well. And then you say, if you get this, let me know and send me like a blue butterfly, or I don't know, it could be something weird like send me $5 bills. And it's kind of weird because people like actually get that. Like they'll actually get like specifically the blue butterfly or specifically like $5 bills, or it's just weird. It's so funny how that is, you know?
Wow,
How's the
this is
chat
amazing.
handling it? Yeah,
So
it's cool.
I got a question. So Mark, obviously Mark like thinks about this as well. So do you guys think that like this is a way for us to get write ourselves out of the soul trap? Do you think
Maybe.
relates to the greater reality? And do you think like we can kind of, is this how we at the end of this life is over, we escape this maybe, or is,
So
you know what I
maybe,
mean?
maybe. So when I first mentioned it to Mark, I think it was last year, he said it was sad and that he thought it was, people just trying to escape and, it was bad. But I recently talked to him again and he seemed to be like really fascinated by it. And I was telling him like all the research I was doing on it. And he seemed really interested in it. He's like, I totally believe it. He's like, I totally believe it. You should keep up with it. Which made me feel pretty good. And I feel like there's answers to this question throughout history. I feel like a lot of things. In fact, I even wrote some notes. So, if you read like old novels, like especially like old Chinese novels, like there's a very famous Chinese classical novel called Shioji, or The Journey to the West. It's about the Monkey King, and he helps these monks get to the western heaven, which is India. So in China, India is the west, even though that to us is the east.
Yeah.
And throughout the story, there's like 100 chapters. And as you get closer and closer to India, you start to find that in these different towns, these different cities where people live, even though everyone in China idolizes India and they want to go to India because, the Buddha and all this Buddhism stuff, right? Because there's also a lot of Taoist stuff in this story as well. It kind of blends both, right? As you get closer and closer to India, as well as in India, all the people who live there were trying to do kind of certain kinds of trade-off things, like, oh, if I do this, or if I trade off this, or I give up this, like a type of sacrifice thing, like I won't eat this, or I won't have sex anymore, or whatever it is you're giving up, like some type of fast or something. And then they'll commit to doing this certain thing so that in their next life, because they don't think they're ready yet to escape the reincarnation trap, they're like, I want to be born in this other place. And the place that they wanted to go to was the Great Tang, which is China. And I thought that blew my mind. I was like, so these people, like, and they would even like write it down, like what they wanted. They would write like wishes. They would like, in my next life, I want to be in China and I want to do these kinds of things. And even women too. And there was also another bunch of funny things, especially as you get, because it's also a comedy, even though it deals with spiritual topics and government and whatever, and politics and things like that. It's very much a comedy, okay? And there's they play up a lot of things, and because the main character is the Monkey King, is Sun Wukong, and so he's a monkey, so he's funny, okay? And there's also another guy, Zhu Bajie, he's a pig, right? And these are all gods, right? Or whatever you want to call it. Jing, they're I don't know. It's kind of like, Robert Monroe talks about psi powers or whatever, like these beings have psi powers, right?
Yeah.
And they have stories where certain, like, I think it's like a princess. There's different ones where the afterlife king or the lord of the afterlife mixed up something, and then somebody got put in the wrong body, and it sounds like walk-ins, like somebody's soul got taken out and they put another one's soul in. And they have a lot of funny comedy bits about that. Even like towards the end of the story, there's like a whole story of that with the girl. I think she's like a princess or queen or something, and she's like, I'm not this person, I'm that person, like somehow got put into this body, right? And it's funny because throughout that story, they very seriously talk about like the guy who's the main master monk, Tang Sanzang. They talk about him as somebody from other lives, or he's this great being and he was placed into this monk. And it's the duty of these other, his students, his tudi, his disciples, to help him get to the West. And then when they get there, they become like types of Buddhas, right?
Wow.
And it's, even though there's lots of, grand battles and fighting and whatever, like there's, wars and there's battles and violence and whatever, there's also a lot of sexual innuendos and stuff because they need to be pure, but they get to turn it into a joke kind of thing. I read that book. It's a really good book. I watched every TV show produced by China of it. And I've seen several movies versions of it and cartoons. And I love it. I love it. It's just really good. There's also other similar things in other classical Chinese novels like The Dream of Red Mansions, Hong Lo Meng, which is probably one of the better English translated novels. It's really good. They talk about, there's this goddess of disillusionment, and she appears to the main character of Jia Baoyu. And it's funny because that story is supposed to be a tragedy, but oftentimes something that seems like something bad in your life or some disadvantage you have was like some kind of a trade-off for something else. And the characters in that book are all geniuses, and they're kids, right? They start off in the book like 12 and 13 years old, and they're kind of growing up, and they're all geniuses. They're like master writers, poets, their ability to write, their ability to problem solve. They're very like scientific and logical. They have studied all these high arts and literature and so on, and they're fantastic at like different kinds of arts and things. And they value, like, it's very similar to like the Renaissance, but I think it was Ming Dynasty, right? Which was a very tiny little short dynasty, right? And I find it strange that people in our sphere of whatever, people like our sphere of influence, people don't talk about that, There's other Chinese novels, especially from, I think a lot of these novels are from Ming Dynasty, where they kind of romanticize the Tang Dynasty and or ancient China. And there's one called The Three Kingdoms, San Guoyin or San Guoyan, same thing. And there are different figures in there who are also like these wise men. And one of them is Zhuge Liang, which is one of my favorite. So there's times where I've scripted stuff with Zhuge Liang for like certain kinds of meditative stuff, similar to like Napoleon Hill, where I could like talk to that. And it's interesting about the power of the mind. The mind fills all these things in. Like there's people who, when you script this stuff, you could be vague and your mind just makes it happen. It just kind of shows how powerful we actually are, and we just don't know, or we forgot.
I was going to say that. That's what it seems like. It seems like now we're like coming into this like, maybe we are going into like somewhat of a golden age where like consciousness exploration is becoming more of a thing, like.
I hope so, because I've seen it. Honestly, I feel like even this, because we're in the CR, the current reality, I feel like I've shifted a few times in June, because I could have sworn in May there were certain people, certain personality types who were more like, they have this kind of like materialistic view of things. And then I came across content that they were in, and they were talking about all the kind of stuff that you talk about, whether it's consciousness or, reincarnation or aliens, or because the telepathy tapes, that is super popular right now. That's a huge
thing too, right? That's huge.
And now they're all talking about it like from the academic perspective, and they talk about it from the scientific perspective. And I mean, these are people who are not theists. I love that. I went through a very miserable time in my life, and I had to learn all of this stuff. I had to learn how to think like an atheist and an anti-theist and all the materialistic stuff, and I was really good at it. I understand how to see things from that perspective. It was probably the most valuable lessons I have ever learned. I just was very unhappy, but there's so many things that I learned that I value so much. There's still a lot of prejudice of people towards atheists and anti-theists, whatever. But I have found that people who are atheists, anti-theists, and agnostics are very kind people. But in a lot of ways, they're very godlike. Whenever there was disasters, like huge storm disasters, because to them they view this life as this is it, and there isn't another. So they value life. So when these disasters happened, they were volunteering to go help out, whereas people who were like religious were not. And because they valued life. And when someone committed suicide, to them, that was super painful for them. They were like, we were terrible to these people. We could have helped these, because to them, that's the value, because they're thinking from the perspective of your human body, because your human body is a being. It's alive,
Yeah, it's a living organ. It's an organism. Yeah,
it's a real thing. Yeah. And I'm glad that I did learn those things. I'm glad that I went through that. And there are just many different ways to look at things,
I got a question. So do you think our hearts tie into this at all? Because they say, as far as like manifestation goes, your heart is like a really powerful thing. And they say you can do a lot with your heart energy, which I've learned myself, having like entity attacks and stuff.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised, because a lot of times with certain things, so for example, since we're talking about like shifting and whatever, or even like so-called manifesting or mind over matter, I've many times recommended this. I've recommended this to Michelle. There's a website, flowdreaming.com. If you don't like regular like Eastern style meditation where you like empty out your head, if you're too much of a thinking person like myself, go to flowdreaming.com, and that's by Summer McStravick. I've done many things, many events with her. She's very nice. And I've talked to her mom, Venus Andrek. And she gives out a free kit, and you can download it. It's on her website. And you can try flow dreaming. I recommend trying it for like 5 weeks. And she has a free one that she gives you, and you just play the audio, and you just use your mind and your daydreaming to affect your life. One of the best parts of that, there's a few good parts actually. I've noticed this coming up with, because I noticed you had a lot of guests on talking about like a toroid type thing.
Yeah.
In that kind of flow, she calls it a flow dream. It's basically a guided meditation. When she first starts out, she talks about like feeling your energy kind of coming out and in and out, and mingling and mixing with the reality around you. And then she kind of goes into like this, like you want to view it as like a river, like a flow, which is very like Taoist. And then she talks about how all the things that are bothering you or causing you trouble, like they just float away. That whole beginning part of that guided daydream meditation, whatever you want to call it, is so good. It like clears out a lot of things. Another thing she likes to do is, it's not in that audio, but she talks about like cleaning out the attic. Like if there's thoughts and feelings in your head, just think about your head as like the attic in a house, and then you get a broom, and there's a window out the side, and you just sweep it out of all that dust and all those unwanted thoughts, and just sweep it out. And if you sweep it out both sides, a window on both sides, and then do it like 3 times, you'll feel like a lot better. It's really interesting how that actually works. Another thing I find works really good is if you're really tense, if you think of like a rope that's very tight, and then you feel it just drop and get loose, that image and that feeling really helps. So with flow dreaming, like you said, with the heart, her main thing is she wants you to use emotion. So it's very popular with women. A lot of times these things are very popular with women. I think because women are more naturally oriented to very strong emotions, right? That's not to say that men are not, and that men cannot. Men just kind of tend to be activated a little differently. It's just, and there's no, like, these are generalizations. It's different, exceptions to every rule. I find that for like you need to understand things like yin and yang or dark and light. A lot of times, especially in the Western mentality, it's always like good versus bad or dark versus light. When in actuality, the dark side of the yin and yang is the yin is the female. It's the receptive part. And I don't know why in the West people think it's the white side. That's the male side. That's the yang, right? And I have an issue where I'm way too yang activated. It's such an issue. And so for me, I've been working on just like calming down and slowing down. And I had these conversations with Mark recently, and he was making a lot of jokes about it. He's like, "Oh yeah, you definitely need to work on that." And you're just as active as I am. I mean, you're always putting out content, right? And I'm always doing stuff. I'm always working towards something, researching something, helping somebody. And then I have things that I also want to do with my life, you know? And I don't know, but the emotion, it's kind of like, you know, they talk about Luce, Robert Monroe Luce.
Yeah, Luce.
In the flow dreaming, especially, they talk about like putting your emotion into things. Now, for me personally, especially when you get into like, this is why I don't like law of attraction, because I feel like there's a lot of things that people don't talk about and don't mention, and it's overly simplistic. I'm the type of person that I would faithfully do everything in law of attraction, like The Secret, and I would have all kinds of problems, all kinds of blowback, all kinds of like just chaos, and it was just really, really bad. And when I looked into, like, for example, like transurfing, like reality transferring, Vadim Zeland stuff, he figured it all out. He was like, "This is why it's not working. This is what the problem is. This is the stuff no one's telling you." If you've been faithfully trying law of attraction style stuff and you're having a lot of blowback or the opposite thing, that's because things flip. They flip poles. Like, you know, you have North Pole, South Pole, and magnets flip. Things can flip. This is also like, I don't want to get too much into this topic. Like, I hate this term. It's called like a twin flame thing, like runner chaser kind of crap. It's because things flip. They're flipping too much, right?
Yeah.
But when you're putting so much effort into it and you're trying so hard and you're doing everything and you're feeling everything and it's super strong, but it's not working, it's probably because you're too powerful. It's probably because you're doing it too much. And I didn't know that because there's nowhere in The Secret that says that. They talk about like how it works every time and blah, blah, blah. And here's all this studies that backs up my confirmation bias. But nobody talks about when it doesn't happen or when it goes wrong. They blame the person as though they're not doing they're wrong or something. But in this, they pretty much explain a lot of that. So if you put too much effort into it, put too much emotion into it, which is what I thought I was supposed to do, it's like putting too much electric charge. Like when you plug in the circuit, the plug into the electrical reciprocal, it has to be the right voltage, because if it's too high, it's going to break the machine. It's like I was breaking the machine. Nobody in law of attraction tells you that. Okay. And also there's things like some people are more oriented in opposite things. Like if you've ever studied theater or been on stage, I have, in that culture, and even in film as well, they never say good luck, because that's like cursing. That's like jinxing somebody. Instead, they would say things like break a leg. They love to hear that. They don't want to hear like good luck. That's just you screwed them. Never say good luck to an actor just before they go on stage. You'll just ruin it all. It's over. That's it. It's gonna be like the worst performance. But say break a leg, now they're in the right mindset. If you're getting opposite things of what's happening, there's a lot of reasons for that. You might be oriented differently. Some people are like opposites attract, and not like attracts like. It's opposites attract, which is how physics is usually. And then also another thing people don't keep into account is that this reality has its own scripts. This reality has its own flow, and you're orienting yourself to your new ideal, right? Your other ideal or whatever. And so it doesn't always want that. It's gonna like, oh, you think you want that? How about this? Sometimes it goes really, really bad and really, really rotten the closer you are to it. And if you just get through that, that's when the good stuff is. In fact, they even have a technique in here. They call it advantage. What's the advantage? If something really bad happens, if you're one of those, okay, and the really bad stuff starts happening, you need to kind of assess and be like, okay, what's the advantage of this? What is the advantage I get out of things going completely mayhem right now? Because once you realize what it is, and there's always something, then you don't see it as like, oh no, right? And for a lot of the people who are the best like trend surfers, they're the ones that usually have a lot of times that like the chaos stuff, and they go, oh, here comes the chaos, I just got to go through it. Now that doesn't mean that's always going to happen, of course not, because the more you keep doing things, there's no like kickback, there's no blowback, because you've already shifted out, you've already switched tracks. And this to me, I call this like hard and soft. So when you think of like flow, like Taoism or whatever, it's like this flow, it's like this river. A lot of times we'll talk about things like chi and prana. It's very soft, like water and air. And then there's like, which is why I think it's called trans surfing, which is like hard. It's like a rail, and you're on this rail, and it just keeps going. It's very linear, right?
Yeah.
And when you're jumping tracks or switching tracks, that's where you're going to have like these weird, like, oh no, it's like this, it's like an earthquake, or it's like, I have experienced this many, many times. Then there's things like paradigms. Paradigms are very real. They're so real, and they terrify people. If you come close to the edge of your paradigm, not only is it terrifying and it's scary, it's going to scare you really bad, and it scares other people, because you're going to breach it and you're going to like move forward. And a lot of times when you're just about to succeed in something, other people will try and stop you. The way that you know that you're not wrong is if you understand what you're doing and you believe in what you're doing, and you can logically talk yourself through, you can counter argue it, or you can make the case for it. It doesn't matter how scared other people are, because they'll come at you with all kinds of things to tempt you back, right? And I know so many people who have just, they're right about to do it and then they just screw it up. I've known so many people that are self-sabotagers. I'm not that kind of person, but I've known lots of people like that. So many people like that. And you can't necessarily rely on other people. If you're wanting everything else to sort of support your thing, you can't rely on that. Sometimes you have to rely on yourself. It's kind of like, to borrow like a more Western view of things, like you don't, if you're like in the dark, right, and you're finding your way, you need to find the way, but the light's gone out, or other people have taken the light away from you, so you can't go through there. But you have to realize that you have your own light, and you don't need anyone else's light, because you are your own light, and you'll light the way. And once you see that light inside of yourself, you can see that you see yourself to that destination. And it's like that with so many things. You can learn anything, you can do anything, you can be anything.
That's amazing.
Okay?
That really is amazing. That really is, honestly, yeah. Like, and it seems like you've really been able to like change your life with it, or like you've been able to experience things like, like it really is like, do you guys have any questions in the chat? Like, I saw that Black Feather in the Wind says that she uses the Silva method for remote viewing. She says, I'll put the comment up on the screen. She says, I do this. So what is the Silva? I've heard of the Silva method, but what does that mean? Like, what is the Silva method?
Okay, so the general basics of the Silva method is you calm down and you change your brain waves. It's probably closer to like when you were a baby. And the first one that you learn is like alpha, right? It's very calm. And then there's other different levels, and then you want to get into like theta and stuff like that. And you basically just tell yourself what you want. There is a lady who has a high, like beyond statistic, like success rate of winning every contest she ever wanted since like, what was it, the 1960s or 50s or something. You can look it up. It's on YouTube. And what's her name? Let me check it right now. If it wants to look, of course it's gonna like be slow because Mercury. But basically you get calmed down, and sometimes they play like these beats and stuff. And this was I don't know if this was around the same time as Robert Monroe or not, but he perfected these methods, and he came up with these methods to help, like, out of love for his daughters. He wanted to help them learn stuff. So when you get into this calm state, you can learn things at an accelerated rate, like the first time. And then the deeper you get into this relaxed state, you can actually know things without even being told what they are. It's like superpowers. It's like Jedi stuff. And when he started developing it and teaching people things, he realized he could tailor different kinds of techniques. So, for example, if you've been practicing the Silva method for a good while, there's something called the 3 fingers techniques, and I'm not there yet. But you program yourself that when you put your 3 fingers together like this, that you automatically go into Silva mode, or into the Silva mode, or whatever, the sometimes it's called level or whatever. And you can just think about what you want. There's an app called Mind Valley, and those are also people that are students of Silva. There's Ken Kosha. There's so many people. Like, there's generations of people that have been doing this, and I mean, like, they're so good at it. You could just watch their channel for like every day for the rest of this year and learn stuff for free. Like, I mean, if you want to pay for classes, that's a thing too. But they also have, like I said, like, they've been using methods which honestly sound like reality shifting. There's a girl, I think her name's Kira. She puts out stuff for reality shifting all the time. Sometimes it's like every week, or sometimes every day. And she looks like a cute young girl from England, but she doesn't talk like a kid. She does kid things. She's like, what, 20 something, I guess, but she talks like a wise woman. She talks like someone much older than her chronological age. She doesn't talk like a kid, most of the time, right? And she has Q&As and stuff. And this is another thing. You don't have to make judgments about people based on their age. You can learn things from someone younger than you, and that's okay. Sometimes, like when you and I were kids, right? We used to teach adults how to use computers and the internet, right? That was totally normal. I remember growing up, and all the adults around me did not understand computers. They did not understand the internet. They didn't even understand smartphones. And I had to help everybody to learn that, who was significantly older than myself. I mean, now it's weird. They want to like make kids not have smartphones or computers, which is weird to me. Also, I feel like kids have been sort of like, their childhoodness has been extended and prolonged. Like, I remember, because I was like a latchkey kid. Like, we'd come home from school, we had our own key. I made lunch and dinner for my brothers. I made iced tea. I cooked stuff. I try to teach that to my daughter, but my husband liked to spoil her a lot. But I taught her a lot of things. Now she's cooking all the time. I used to go shopping by myself. I used to go to the grocery store by myself. But now it's like, I mean,
we were much more responsible. Yeah. Like it was like our parents trusted us. Like, for me, I don't know. It was like, it was like we would be outside all day. I don't know if you remember this when you were a kid, or if you were like this, but like we would be out all day, and my mom and everybody else's mom would say, "Come home when the street light comes on." It was like a thing, you know what I mean? It was like you knew to come home when the street light comes on, and I'd be out all day playing football. But then sometimes we would play. I just remembered this the other day. At night, this was so much fun. I can't believe people. I don't think you could do this anymore, honestly. But I haven't talked about this yet in a while. We used to play release when we were like, like 10, 12 years old, where you had a base and then it was like hide and go seek, but it was called release, where like you had to like hunt
cool.
down people, and you're like going through the neighborhood, and it's like pitch black dark out. I'm like, you could not get away with that today because there's so many fucking, you know, pedos and everything else out there, you know. But like when we were a kid, you could do that. But like release was like an advanced form of hide and go seek, and we would play it like at nighttime, you know, and it was
cool.
It was fascinating, you know, like and like nobody ever got hurt, nobody ever got, you know, kidnapped, nobody, you know what I mean? Like it was just like, you know, I mean, you know, there was some sand piles by my house. I remember there's these huge sand piles by my house, and I remember a couple kids like in the neighborhood got stuck in the sand piles. They looked like pyramids, but they were because there was a big sand and gravel company by my house when I was young, you know. I've been remembering like being a kid, you know, and how much different it was when I was a kid as compared to like, I mean, like kids now, they would never even think of doing stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's just
there's like a bajillion rules for everything. Like even cartoons today are so sanitized and stuff. Then people who now are adults who were kids, you know, just a little while ago, they'll watch cartoons from the 80s and 90s and they're like shocked. But to me, like a lot of cartoons today, like this century, I feel like are just kind of boring because there's no story to it. Like I loved watching like The Secret of Nim, or which is like a Don Bluth film. It's like an animated film. It's kind of scary. Also like Pinocchio, the Walt Disney's Pinocchio is really scary, but I freaking love that movie. And it's not, if you took the scary parts out, that's just no point, you know? Like fairy tales were scary. That's why that was cool. Like, you know, I used to tell like ghost stories. I loved ghost stories. Like, I used to love this weird book franchise called Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I freaking loved that so much. Did you ever read those books? I loved that.
Never saw. I think I did. I think I had. Was it a? I think I remember
the
when
black
it was
and
like
white.
Black cover. I think I had one of those. Then someone mentioned the other day, do you remember that show that was on Nickelodeon and when we were kids?
Oh yeah, Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah, you remember that?
I loved that. I feel like a good scare here and there, you know, it's kind of good. You know, not terrorism. Terrorism's a whole other. That's kind of another issue I have with this century is just like the constant terrorism. Like, and some of it's just fake. Like my daughter grew up her whole life, and there's always bomb scares, sometimes every day for months. You know, that there's some bomb scare that's phoned in or whatever, and then they have to go outside and waste everybody's time because you have to check for another bomb. And
this is on her university?
No, when she was in elementary school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was such a thing that they didn't even call us at home and tell us anymore, right? One time I actually got a call and I was totally shocked, and I called the school and I was like, what's going on? And they're like, oh no, they just had there's this hacker that calls the schools in this area, and they seem to do different ones on different days, and because of the laws and everything, we have to check, and you know, and it's basically like scaring everybody. I feel like that kind of scare is bad because you're always under this threat. But like for entertainment purposes, you know, like scary stories, not so bad because like you get scared in the story, but then you're like, oh, I'm fine. It was just fun, you know. Like I know a lot of people watch horror movies too.
You're gonna think I'm so crazy for this, but like, you know, before the Jerky Boys, like, you remember the Jerky Boys came out, the prank calls. Before there was that, me and my friends were prank calling people, and it was like a big thing. You know what I mean? Like, we did it so much, and like, we always got away with it because they were like landline phones. You couldn't trace any. I mean, you remember Star 69?
Oh yeah, Star 69.
To trace someone's number, you had to hit Star 69.
Yeah. We had a way to hack phones. There was a way, this was in like the early and the mid 90s. There was a way that if you typed in a certain number and then the last four numbers of the payphone, you could get it to like ring over and over and over again. And so we went all over like New Jersey and Philly and parts of like Eastern Pennsylvania. When we'd go there, we'd be like, yeah, let's do that thing. And then we did that. And then wouldn't you know, by like 1996, they got rid of that so that we couldn't prank it anymore. We taught so many people how to do that too.
That's I remember payphones, and there was actually I was actually listening to an Art Bell episode from the other day where like these people were like calling in from this desert payphone, and it was like in the middle of the desert, but it was like the busiest payphone, and like like some guy had a fidget thing, or like something I don't know, but some of those old Art Bell episodes are so great because they'll take you right back to like the old times, you know what I mean? And it makes me want to start learning I got to learn how to take calls on my show. I have to learn how to do that. Like, I think it would change things so much, I think it would take things to another level. I really want to learn how to do that. I mean, the good thing is I have Chat GPT now, but I mean, like, there's so many different, it'll tell you. So I just thought about just taking my phone and getting a Google Voice number and then putting my phone to my microphone and letting people talk through it, and then hopefully that would.
Oh, there's a ways you could do that. Yeah. You gotta. I think you could. Yeah, there's different ways of doing that. I think you have to. Yeah, if you have your settings so that it's picking up the computer audio, you could probably do that. Especially if you have like a Google phone or whatever. ChatGPT might have some ideas on that or whatever. Or there's some organizations that do that. Like, I can't think of the name at the second, but I used to sit in on all kinds of phone call things like 2 years ago that kind of fizzled out during the pandemic. Like, I used to do like investment stuff, and I was sitting in on their calls, and it was free, and people could call in from a phone. It was pretty cool. I can't remember what that was, but I know you've been wanting to like get your stuff out more. That's why like I sent you like I emailed you stuff like so much like last year. I think I gave like I figured it'd be real easy, honestly, because I'm a film director. Like if you want to do documentary of this type of stuff you do, or certain types of topics or whatever. I know you had on a guest recently who said that there was a potential for a timeline where you could actually get stuff to happen. If you wanted to do a pitch to like television, we could do that. Then there's also public access, which is usually totally free. If you check like in your area, like a TV station that's either public access or community access, basically the same thing. You could go in there, shoot the episodes and edit it and then put it online, and then they'd air it on TV. I also gave you like an affiliate to Film Hub, and the paranormal stuff is so popular right now that if you make a film, it needs to be at least like feature length, because short films don't do as well now since the pandemic. They were doing well in the pandemic, but not anymore. But you could put your film in there. You can also put it into film festivals. People would love to go watch that, especially places where like paranormal topics are popular. And it would just go into syndication and all kinds of streaming platforms. The paranormal one, like there's literally like tags and categories just like Bigfoot is anything Bigfoot is so freaking popular. UFOs, really? Yes, UFOs. Psychics is another one, and ghosts. It's crazy popular, super freaking popular. So yeah, if we just made a nice polished film or even a series, like making a series is driving me crazy. I just doing stuff by myself because my computer is like old and dying. I cannot get this freaking film series done because there's always some problem. But just if the film on its own is easy, that's easy to do. Yeah. Well, what do the people in the comments think? Would they like to see a documentary? Like, because honestly, I feel like a lot of times people come to your channel because they like you. You're interesting. So yeah, you're like the most censored. You're what? The most censored paranormal podcaster out there in the 2020s, I think. Is there anyone else more censored than you? You know, they had articles about you, right?
Yeah, I had an article written about me by Bold Journey magazine. Like I couldn't believe it. I didn't think I would make it this far, and I wish if they would have never took my old channel down, I would have made it further. Like now it's like I'm in this rebuilding phase. That's why I've even thought about like I mean, like I guess I've committed to going to the conference this year, but I'm like, I'm in the back of my mind, something's like, maybe you should just chill and just rebuild. But like then, and part of me is like, well, when am I ever going to get this experience? I might not ever get this experience again. So it's like, part of me is like, go with it, so because I'm like, I get nervous about stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and I know it was like that before, but like I just get like, you know what I mean? Like I get like, I don't know, like.
What's the main drive for you? What's your main passion? Like, what's your goal? Your biggest, like, what's your dream? What's your biggest goal out of this? Like disclosure or?
Well, I mean, I have a few, disclosure and like, like I would like to turn it into like a full-time radio show plus a radio station I've been thinking about doing to where they're playing shows 24/7 and I could get different hosts to come on. Kind of like, I don't know if you knew the people from or if you knew the show Beyond the Veil. There's a couple Beyond the Veil, but I'm talking about the original with Chris and Cherie Geo, where they went to Egypt and they did ayahuasca in the Great Pyramid. Dude, their show was amazing, but then they kind of got political and like, but Ra Castaldo was on their network. They had this network. It was called Truth Frequency Radio, and they had a lot of good radio hosts. But then I guess the guy who was running it, he kind of gave up on it. And then Ra Castaldo was he said he was like, doing it for a while, and then he kind of got away with it. But it gave me the idea. I was like, man, I'd love to have my own radio network where I could bring on other hosts and they could have their show. And I've talked to Michelle about it. Michelle likes the idea, she said she would contribute to it. And like, I'm sure I could get a bunch of other people to contribute too, like maybe, I don't know. I know a lot of content creators, but I'd love to do something like that where it's like a 24-hour streaming network where people can listen to shows all the time. And then, somehow get it syndicated, I mean, it doesn't have to be cool. Because you can syndicate it on the internet now. You know what I mean? Like, know who else does this is Joe Roop from Fringe FM. I love his network. He's been on my show a bunch of times, but like he does his own thing. He has the Fringe FM and he's a good guy. He talks about consciousness and stuff like that. I like his network a lot too. I follow a lot of these people that have been around for a long time, but they're like our age, but like they just been doing it longer, like they're inspiration to me, like I don't know. But that's interesting you say that because I don't know what I want, but that is one of the things, and then as far as like, I would like to see disclosure, but I mean, I don't know what that's going to look like. I feel like in a way we already have it,
I feel like we have it. It's just the mainstream media just doesn't want you to think that we have it. Like, I mean, we had hearings in the government. They even changed it to UAP. They admitted that, officers were forced to lie or to not report things. How things have been like ridiculed and satirized and, stigmatized and whatever. And I mean, even there's stuff that even like astronauts said, and I feel like it's kind of there. Like there are a lot of people more and more coming forward saying they've seen stuff. Like I've seen weird stuff. I remember like first time I ever saw like a quote unquote UFO. It was just the weirdest thing I ever saw. I was on a plane and I was flying to Germany and it just looked like this giant metal egg flying through the sky. And the fact that people just acted super nonchalant, like whatever. But I was like, don't you see this thing? There's this thing in the sky. Like, what's that? And even like I remember getting like the flight attendants and they're like, oh yeah, huh. And then they just walked away. I was just like, what? There's a thing in the sky. It's like weird. Like I'd like we'd be driving in the highway and we'd see like a big eagle and be like, oh, there's this cool eagle. And then go home and tell everybody, I saw this big eagle, this awesome eagle looking thing. Right? But then like, a big giant metal egg in the sky outside the airplane and nobody.
You had a triangle go over your neighborhood or something like that.
Grief.
When you were doing
there's
that
like,
show with me and Michelle.
Yeah, there's like weird stuff. There's like these things and it's like they're shaped kind of like a sort of like shaped like this kind of a thing. And they're huge and they have like a circle and one will be white and the other will be red. And it has like these like lines through it, right? And it makes this weird sound. And when you first start hearing it, I'm like, is that a helicopter? It just doesn't sound like a helicopter. I don't it is. Sometimes I'm like, are they doing like LiDAR scans? Like, I don't know what it is. It's big. It's pretty big. And when I try to photograph, because I can see it with my eye, my human eye, but when I try to photograph it, it doesn't look like anything, or it'll look like a little white blip. That's it. It doesn't photograph well, you know? And it's not like I have my good camera equipment out there like, oh yeah, I'm going to go outside with my $1,000 lens and try and shoot a UFO tonight, because it's not going to happen. And then when I'm not, I'm doing something else, like taking a walk and catching a Pokemon or something, all of a sudden there's this weird thing there. I'm like, oh, what the heck is it doing here again? What the hell?
Yeah,
And I'm like, and then people see him. Another thing is everybody thinks this stuff is drones. I have a drone. I know what a drone is, but I know what a drone isn't. Drones don't change shape. That doesn't make any sense.
I agree.
Was it? I think it was in 2022. I took a walk around my neighborhood, and my husband was taking a walk with my daughter, and they were in a different place. And I was walking back, and I saw this weird thing in the sky. And at first, I'm like, "What the heck is that?" Because at first, I'm thinking, "Is that a drone?" I'm like, "That's huge for a drone," but I don't know what it is. And it keeps like changing shape and stuff, and it's like totally black, right? And so then I go to try and get around the trees because it like goes in front of the trees. At the same time, my husband is on a totally different angle, and he's like, what the hell is that? And then it just keeps moving. And then next thing I know, I'm on this other side trying to get a good look at it. I see my husband. He's like, did you see that thing? And I'm like, I saw that thing. It's just weird. And then another weird thing is, like, a lot of times when you see this stuff, you just forget about it. Like, you just forget about it, right? Unless something reminds you of it, And I became aware of this, like, just odd things many times in my life where I'd see. Here's another one. It's so weird because I'm like so skeptical. Like, I'll look at something and it'll be weird for years, and I'll look at it and I'm like, what is that? And because I'm trying to pay attention to it, like, right? Because at first I'm like, that's weird. But then now it'll look like a firecracker, or now it'll look like like a balloon or something, right? When before it didn't. And I'm like, when I was like, what is that? Now that I'm concentrating to look on it, now it just looks like some normal thing. But then I'll stand there watching it and I'm like, oh no, what's that? It's kind of weird. Like, have you ever had that kind of experience where it's like, yeah, but if it's a firecracker, why is it still in the sky though? Like, see what I mean? It just,
what I wanted to ask you about? It's like, oh, sorry, go ahead. I'll ask you. I just don't want to forget about it. I wanted to ask you about ancient history, because you sent me a lot of stuff about ancient history, and I didn't, I wanted to tell people about the automatons, because I thought that was because I love ancient history, and when you showed me about the automatons, I had no clue about that. And guys, what these were like these ancient robots. They actually had ancient robots. So I wanted to ask you, like, how technologically advanced do you think the ancients were? And do you think that they were very highly advanced and we just been reset a couple times or something like that?
I kind of wonder, because when I first started listening to Howdy McCoskey, sometimes I thought, oh, maybe he's crazy, or maybe he's just fanciful or whatever, right? But then when I started digging stuff myself, it was like weird, because it was like I had this feeling, like this nudge, like, oh, look for this, look for that. And then it would just start showing up. And this was like around 2022. And then I started finding all this stuff. So like the city of, it's like Rhodes, Greece. It's like a island. It had like a city. I started to find like where there was accounts where the whole city had like automated stuff. It's kind of like, when you go to like Disney World or Disneyland and you have like things that move, or, vending machines and whatever. But they had all these kinds of like automated things. They even had what looked like statues of goddesses that moved they even walked. They were on like wheels and stuff, and they moved very realistically, but they were like made out of wood, or something like probably wood or plaster, and they had like moving parts. And they had like the goddess would go around the streets, and you could see her walk around, and they had all kinds of these like things that moved. And then even in ancient Egypt, there were certain statues, like remnants of these statues, that inside have like mechanisms like bells and like their arms might have moved or whatever, and they were made out of rock, like stone and stuff, right? And they apparently were still working, like maybe like 1,000 years ago. So it's kind of weird to find this out. There's a lot of stuff that we don't know about in the Middle East. It's kind of not, well, is it suspicious that everybody wants to blow them up and, replace them and get rid of them as though they never existed? There's stuff that they know about in the Middle East that we don't know about. Like, for example, the Moors were here in the Americas long before we were. There's actually a lot of, so much. I mean, the more you dig, the more you find. Not only were the Moors here, the so-called like Black people were already here, right? And I'm a Native American. I've talked to many elders. And they're like, yeah, they're already here. In fact, like in Virginia and many parts of the South, like people just very similar looking to so-called, Black people or African. And now there's a lot of debate over where people originally came from. And in fact, the name of the United States is America, but it's not from Amerigo. It actually is
Amaruca, the Native American.
Yeah, it's Moorish. No.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
It's Amer and Rica. And I forgot what it means. You can look that up. And then even like Puerto Rico, like it has some Moorish thing. When I dug into like a lot of like when Columbus allegedly came here, when I checked into like the people from that period, like there's this one dude, was it Augustine there's a place in Florida named after him because he was looking for the so-called fountain of youth or whatever. And he had a lot of weird, interesting, they had a certain knowledge of things. But they would tell Americans here that somehow Europeans and people overseas didn't know that the Earth was round when actually a lot of them did, especially like sailors and a lot of these Islamic world types definitely did. They had maps and things, and the robot stuff was fascinatingly interesting to me. Another one was during the when Christians went from like Egypt and the Middle East and they went into Europe to bring Christianity to people, because the main reason was to bring like people who were peaceful. It wasn't this to be saved stuff. You're not being saved. It was this to bring like love and peace and altruism. And when they went up to Europe, they brought technology. They brought like some of their knowledge with them, and that's where like clocks and windmills and water wheels and that kind of stuff came from. Some people think it's from the Serbians. Like every time I look, the information changes. So I don't exactly know the total truth. The first time I looked into it, there was a lot of sources claiming that Serbians originally came from Egypt, like around Alexandria. But today, you might not. This stuff changes. It's frustrating because I'll spend so much time learning things, and then a year or two later, it's gone, and then it changes. This has happened again recently. Like there's certain like documents that I was aware of last year that now when I look into it, when you do a search result, it will just say it's fake or it's phony or it's racist or it's whatever. It drives me crazy. But
yeah. What do you think of the story of the Anunnaki? It seems like they were like a worldwide like group that came here and like spread civilization like to all over the place, and maybe they might have genetically manipulated people. Or I don't
like
know.
that guy. Yeah, the Paul Wallace. I really like a lot of his approach to stuff. So, like for example, like the cargo culture theory. I think that's a really good theory. I think that makes so much sense.
It really does.
It really, really does. That there's some kind of advanced civilization. For some people, they would say it's aliens or whatever. But in some ways, I kind of feel like there was some other advanced civilizations of humans. Yeah. But there's also like when you get into things like the resets and stuff, then I'm not so sure, because like for example, something that's called a pre-contact dog breed, like or species or whatever, contact breeds, they're called pre-contact dogs. Like so here in the United States, in the Americas, so North America, South America, Central America, right? There's different types of dogs that are supposed to be originally from here. And we have even like remnants of some like mummified dogs in some places, or, you know, where they dug up graves and they'll have the DNA, they'll recover the DNA from the bones and things like that, right? But those same dogs, exact same anatomy, exact same skull and bones, whatever, that we still have today, do not have the original pre-contact DNA. All their DNA is from Europe and Asia. So what does that mean? Were they just reprogrammed to look like pre-contact dogs? I don't know.
That's crazy.
That just breaks my brain. Like, because this is something like even my daughter, she'll talk about that. Like the pre-contact dog DNA thing. Like, that's a conundrum right there. Like, why? Like that can't. Like, how do these dogs that we have their DNA samples of, that, like, you know, 1,000 years ago, few hundred years ago, we have it before the so-called contact of the people from the, you know, overseas, from like Europe and Asia and Africa and whatever, and now their DNA of these dogs is nothing like the original. And yet they look exactly like them. Their bones look exactly like them. Everything looks exactly like them except their DNA.
Wow, that's crazy. What?
It's crazy.
Speaking of which, do you think we've ever reincarnated into other things here besides humans?
I said, well, some of us probably. I don't know about everybody, but some of us probably. I mean, like, for me personally, because people are hotly argue about these things, right? In India, that's normal, a normal idea that people, and in China probably too, people will believe. I mean, assuming that they have a belief. Not everybody in like those places today are necessarily halves. A lot of them are atheists today, right? But you know, that's a normal thing though, especially like in India and maybe even South Asia or whatever, where people will say, well, I remember being a cat, or I remember being, you know, a horse or something, you know, or they think, you know, they have their ideas of like karmas and stuff like that. For me personally, I could definitely see myself as an animal. Like I could see myself being like some, like, this is so funny. Like, I'm just a kooky person like this. Like, I could totally see myself like reincarnating as a dinosaur for 1,000,000 years, like fighting and, you know, fighting over mates and stuff. I could totally see myself do something dumb like that. Like, and then go, oh, this is dumb. I've done this 1,000,000 times, you know, and then go, oh, what else can I do? How about a mammal? I don't know. Like, I could definitely see myself doing something dumb like that. And then there's things like whales and dolphins and stuff. Like, I don't think they're just some animal. Like, they're definitely like a person. You know what I mean? And
they have sonar too. They have like built-in radar systems. How cool,
they have
cool
AI
is that?
now. They're using AI tools to decode their languages and their songs and stuff, and their dialects. And they even had, was this last year or this year? It was very recent. They announced that they had use some computers to simulate a conversation with, I think it was a blue whale, and it was successful. Or the blue? No, humpback.
What did it have to say? Like, what was it saying?
They're not exactly sure. Like, it was like a greeting, and the whale responded to them, but because we don't really understand everything very well, they guess the whale got bored and was like, "You're weird," and it like left or something.
That's
like,
hilarious.
You know, it's like, you're weird.
Dude, that's so funny. Yeah. Like, you know, they animals probably do think we're crazy. You know, like that's probably why they know to like stay. You know, like
yeah. So Sequest is real. Remember Sequest? Sequest, remember that? You remember? It was a TV show. It was like a sci-fi TV show of like all the like it was like aliens and stuff underwater in the ocean, and like it was like a science fiction show. And there was this kid. What was his name? I think he died. The actor. He was one of those kids. Michelle probably knows. Like this. Was it Jonathan Brandis or something? He was this blonde guy, and he was like the whiz kid on the show who like you know the like our generation, we were kind of smarter than our parents, right? And he built a lot of the tech, and he was talking to a dolphin, and the dolphin was his like pet dolphin or his buddy. And with his computer, he was talking to the dolphin, and every time the dolphin talked, the computer would say what he said in English, and it was it was very funny. I love that show. I used to watch that show every week. So I watched Star Trek and I watched Sequest, which was I don't know, it's fun for me. So
that sounds fun. That's amazing. Yeah. Do you know they play a lot of those shows on, like, if you ever watch like Pluto TV, like Pluto TV's like free. They have like a whole bunch. Yeah, they have a lot of sci-fi stuff, and I know they have like even like they have like Charmed playing 24/7. Remember the show Charmed?
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. I remember a lot of shows that got discontinued. Like, do you remember Flash Forward? That show was so good, and then it got canceled, which was weird because everybody I knew watched it. Do you remember that?
Check that out. I wonder if they have.
Oh my god! So so I'm not going to spoil anything. Basically, the first episode, everybody has like this flash forward. Instead of a flashback, they have this flash forward. The whole Earth has this flash forward of something that's going to happen in the future, and then they all black out, and many people die. Then when they wake up, they remember that flash forward, and they're trying to figure out like what happened. And it was so good. All of my friends watched it, and then they just canceled it. There was so many shows like that. There was another one called Terra Nova, which is like there was a second Earth next to ours, but parallel. Like it's like this other dimension right next to us. And
they just exist. See, when I hear things like this, I think they actually exist, and that's where they get these ideas from, because they're peering into another dimension, and then they're bringing it into reality. You know.
Who knows? It was really cool because in the other Earth, there was like dinosaurs everywhere. And it was very violent, but it was so good. It was super good. I loved it. It was so good.
Do you remember, this is a easy one, but do you remember Planet of the Apes? I mean, Planet of the Apes was really advanced for its time too. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, like, there was so many, like, it's crazy. Like, you know, like, I don't know. I wonder, and I've talked about Spielberg recently. Like, what did he know that he was able to come out with all those films? Like, he came out with that Abduction series in 2002. I've been talking about.
Oh yeah, it was like a mini series. That was good. That was actually really good. I've probably watched it like 3 or 4 times. That's pretty good. I remember when they came out. That was back when VHS still existed, and my mom taped it for me. That was pretty good. And,
that's cool that you were into it back then. Like I was. I was listening to Art Bell back then. You know, I didn't know about anything like that. Like then, all I knew about was Art Bell. You know, like
I used to watch Unsolved Mysteries, and I watched a show called Sightings.
Oh, I love Sightings. I love Unsolved Mysteries too, dude. Sightings only played for a little bit. It got canceled. That was another one that got canceled. But Sightings was
it's funny because Sightings, the people who worked there were extremely skeptical, so they would only put stuff on air if it passed their like strict they had strict standards. And I had professors in college who hated that show. And I was like, but why? And they thought it was because of the way they edited things. I don't agree with that. I edit stuff. If I wanted to deceptively edit stuff, I definitely know how. I'm a filmmaker. I do VFX. I do animation. I do video editing. I do compositing. I mean, I know this stuff. And if I wanted to,
I wish I knew how to do all that stuff. I that's a real talent. Like, you know, I've tried to edit things and it's so tedious. It's like you have to really know what you're doing, you know. But I think if you really know what you're doing, it's probably easier, right?
I love editing stuff. There's something that really break my brain though. So my favorite stuff to do is edit to sound or music, probably because it's like more of a challenge. And I do like to do composites. I can tell when something is fake. I absolutely can tell because I know the plugins. There's definitely stuff out there that like, okay, I just don't hate me for saying this, but I know a lot of VFX people. I was very good friends with David Biedney, and he was effects master. And there, you know, the alien in the window, that guy, that's totally fake. Alien in the window? The guy, okay, if you type in alien in the window, there's this guy who supposedly set up a video and caught an alien like peeking into his window or whatever. That's definitely fake. My cat is talking, and I'm sorry if she's Jojo. She's the one
Jason in the chat, one of my moderators, he's a filmmaker too. He works on films too. And then Tenza, the guy Tenza from he's in the Discord group. His name's Tenza. He just got done. He was working on a film out in Hollywood. He told me he was working on some or I don't know where it was. It's like an alternative like movie. I have to ask him about it.
I've worked on a bunch of films. I did a lot of indie films because unions are an issue, and I don't want to get into that. And then when I went to college, I went to the Art Institute of Philadelphia. I worked at an animation studio in Chestnut Hill, and I worked on stuff for Nick Jr., HBO Family, PBS Kids, and Noggin, which was new at the time. And a lot of the projects I worked on, it's like it never even existed, which happens a lot. But I worked on it. I remember working on this huge project, big funding for HBO Family. It was called Box Boy. And the screenplay was written by a lot of children at this like summer camp. It was this big program. Like the guys who did that studio, their thing was they really like working with kids and like helping kids to have like something to live for so that they wouldn't do drugs or become suicidal and like let it, overcome poverty and things like that. And they won awards. I used to type all the stuff for their website. When they did stuff for Nick Jr., it would every time it was called Animation Stew or Animation Studio, like stew, like the food, right? And every time they air their stuff on Nick Jr., the website would crash and Nickelodeon's website would crash. And I worked so hard there. They didn't pay me anything. And then they full-time hired the dude. Same thing happened at a comic book company I worked at. I worked at Top Cow. They do like Witchblade and a bunch of other stuff. And I worked there. Screwy stuff happened. There was a lot of good and there was also like a lot of really bad. And I don't want to diss anybody, but then their whole studio got, I don't know, I think somebody hacked it or something, or they got a virus or whatever. All the computers pretty much died and blew up. And then when that happened, they're like, oh, we don't need you anymore. They didn't pay me anything, except they would just give me like books. And that's what I did. And I think they only put my name on like 2 of the issues I worked on. And that was
Oh my God.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. I also had a lot of really bad experiences with Disney. Like, Disney is creepy. I never had any good experiences with them. I could have worked for them like 4 times, but it was like really, the contracts were so bad. Oh my God. I could rant for hours at how bad they are. They would call me, they like harass you, right? They would call my cell phone, they'd call my home phone, they would spam my email and demand that I go work for them. They'd say, oh, you're really good, but you need to come work for us. But then the job would never be like the thing that I wanted to do. It would be like, oh, you're an amazing, talented person. You're so talented. But once you sign this contract, you're going to be working and you're going to be selling tickets at like Disneyland or something. And this kind of thing happened so many times. And then when they wanted me to work in a studio in New York. I think it was Jumbo Pictures. There was a bunch of them actually. And they were all calling me over and over. They wanted me to go work there. But they didn't want to give me a fare to go there to bring my portfolio. They didn't want to pay the ticket. I didn't have any money, but they were so annoyed. Like they would annoy me all day, every day. Go here, come here, come to here. My parents didn't give a crap. My stepmom didn't give a crap. Nobody in my life gave a crap to give me dollars to go buy a ticket to go from Philly to New York to bring my portfolio. Okay. And it's like, if you want me that bad, like, can you just give me the fare, like, so that I can take tickets so I can go see you, right? And they just wouldn't. Okay. And it was like, and I was trying to graduate, right? And the same place, they would pay premium to have people who were like computer like programmers. They would pay them an hourly wage, pay them first class to fly from out of state to go there. But the people that actually make the artwork, that actually design the animation and make the animation, was like, you're just a thing. Why would I work there?
That's messed up.
Why would I do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
like,
crazy.
It was stupid.
Yeah. Wow.
And it was weird because there were other studios that they found out my name and they found out my phone number in my dorm, and it would just be like all these phone calls. And then my teacher was like, "Oh, I told them good stuff about you," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, but they're like harassing me though, you know, like." I don't know. I just did not have the money to take the train to go there. I wanted to go there. But then the way that they acted was like red flag, red flag, red flag, like it's bad. So I didn't.
Wow. Man, that's it makes you think, like, you know, like it's only like, it seems like the people who are only privileged get stuff in life, you know, like, and that's what I say about this whole matrix. Like, you know, it's like some people get a better ticket ride than others, you know. Some people get dealt the shittiest hands in life, you know. I mean, if we're playing poker, somebody gets all the shit cards, where somebody else gets an easy ride, you know, whereas other people have to deal with trauma and like, you know, and they wonder why people are like, "Oh, this is a soul trap. I want out of here. This is a prison planet," because they've been dealt so much shit. You know, they want to explode because they can't take it anymore. It's a nightmare to some people.
And then your memory's wiped, and then your memory's wiped, and you can't remember things. There is ways that you can start to remember certain things, because like emotional memory isn't something that you can really like delete. Like I had so many conversations with Michelle. Michelle is very sensitive, so there's times where I'll tell her stuff, and I'm upset or about certain things, but like she feels it. It's like she taps into it, and then she gets really upset, right? As I told her about, I found ways to figure out some of my past lives, and like when you figure it out, when you know, and especially when you really start to confirm it for yourself, you can't you can't just suddenly be like, no, it's not true, because I am such a skeptical person. I scrutinize the crap out of things. And I told some of the stuff to Michelle, and she cried. You know what I mean? She cried when I told her some like just crappy stuff that happened to me in like other lifetimes and stuff. And I like so for example, like I don't eat fish. I can't stand seafood, but when I was really little, I did. I ate things like I ate shrimp, I ate tuna, I ate crabs, lobster, just certain, you know, fish sticks. That sounds disgusting to me today. But
I like crab cakes though. You know, right? I mean, I sound like the guy from Wedding Crashers, but you know, no, but yeah, if you remember that movie, they talked about, you know, it was like a joke, but no, I like crab cakes, I like shrimp, but like part of me wants to go vegetarian nowadays, but like I don't know, I am so confused about that. Like, you know, I really am. Like I don't know, you know, like I don't know, you know. Like my heart.
I figured out why, because I when I was around 6 years old, I started to like not care for fish and seafood, and it just got worse and worse. And then by the time I was like 8, I was like, I can't handle this. I really can't handle this. And I'd always like bug me, and I was like, why is that? Because I remember eating seafood when I was really little. And then, and I'm like, I can't stand the smell of it. I can't stand it at all. And I was doing a lot of meditation on that during like the pandemic time. And then I started to, it's like a memory that's like any other memory. Like when you have a memory, like you think of yourself as a kid, right? You think of yourself as a teenager, right? You can remember that. But when I thought about this, there's different techniques that I use. I use one called brain spotting. It's a really easy technique. You can look that up. And I started to remember stuff. I remember stuff as being a little boy, and I remember the person that was my mother in that life, like basically sold me onto a ship, and to be like a boy, like kind of like a slave on the ship. And it was just really, really terrible stuff. I told Michelle that stuff, and she, to this day, she will still bring it up. She's like, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I'm like, you didn't do it though. It's not you. But I understand why. I also understand like why I hate the cold. I hate the cold. I hate it so much.
I hate the
And
cold too.
I hate it.
I despise it. And living somewhere like here in Pittsburgh, it's the worst place for it because it gets so cold here in the winter. Like, it's like it's. I know you know what it's like because you live in Philly. Like, and if you're by the water, it gets colder, right? Like if you're,
Oh
I
yeah.
guarantee you in Jersey, it was probably you had some really
Oh yeah.
really cold winters. Did you
Oh
grow up in
yeah.
Jersey? Is that where you live?
So I was born in like New Jersey. I was born across from Philadelphia. I was born in a place called Willingboro. And then my mom's from Philadelphia, and her family's like all from there. They're like Pennsylvania Dutch and Apache, and my mother's mother was the British, and my dad's family is a lot of German, and I think some kind of Scotch Irish and some other mix of whatever, mostly German. And
That's an amazing mix. That's an amazing
yeah,
mix.
but my mom, my British grandmother, she's very mixed. Like she's not just British. Like she's apparently her DNA is like super diverse. Like because they're like this whole concept of like royalty is like weird. So she has like Roman blood, she has Greek blood, she has Scottish Welsh. My grandmother's original surname is Redford, which is like one of the like royal classes or whatever, and it's like really old. I don't know. And but in the World War II, like they just lived in the city, and her dad was like a physician, like a doctor kind of thing, and yeah, so stuff like that.
I went to college in Philly. I went to Drexel and when I in like 1999, and I remember it was like just
That's
the turn of the internet, and I remember going to South Street. Like there used to be this place in South Street in Philly called 611 Records. That was like the place to go because like I was into raves. I used to go to raves, and they had like some of the biggest DJs come there right on South Street in Philadelphia. Like I remember that, like because I was living in University City. I know where that is. Like I was living right there. Like I would take the L. They don't call it the subway. They call it the L. Right? You know that if you live in Philly, and you take the L up to South Street, and like I had so much fun. But then listen to this. I guess we can't say the word the word on YouTube or whatever, but some kid took ecstasy and jumped off the highest building at Drexel, if you know where that is. Some kid, like unalived himself. It was crazy. Like it was a crazy time. I remember I got into a huge street fight there. Like I got taught like some huge like built dude. He got mad because I was hit. This is like 2099, 2000 guys. So I'm not.
Yeah, that's when I was there. I was there too.
I got thrown over a couch. Like I don't know why it made me think of this stuff now, but like because you brought up Philly, and it made me think of like all my old memories of like being there.
Oh, I love Philly.
There. The food is so. Remember the huge places on South Street? Do they still have those?
Oh, they have all kinds of stuff that's still there. Like, so honestly, I liked. So some people like the pizza on South Street. I feel like their pizza's too sugary. I liked stuff more in like Center City. Like, there's this place called, was it Mama Angelina's or something? And it's like right on like Broad Street and was it Broad and Walnut or something? It's somewhere right there. It's like where UArts was, like right near there. And there is definitely good pizza there. There's also like a lot of good Chinese food in the area. There's all kinds of good food in Philly. Philly is very.
It sounds cliche, but and the food trucks. Like I remember. I remember what it was. There was this taco truck when I was there. Like we used to all go to this taco truck after we would drink at night. It was like it was amazing. Like I had some good times in Philadelphia. Like I mean, just being a kid. I almost got hired at Inferno. If you remember that store, it was another like skateboarding like rave store, which would have been right up my alley because that's what I did. But then my dad got sick. My dad got cancer, so I had to come home, and I just went to Penn State here in Pittsburgh, like because my dad ended up passing away, which was like crazy to deal with at 21 years old. And that's when that's when I started to like look at this reality, and I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Because like I saw my dad die in like the absolute worst way possible. You know what I mean? It was like you don't ever want to. I mean, like he died from cancer, and it was just like because he was in Vietnam and they sprayed the Agent Orange over there, which was that was like one of my first conspiracies. But it's not even a conspiracy. It's like that shit was like poison. They were basically poisoning people. You know,
Poison, chemical weapons. So shouldn't be using that stuff.
But
I don't know why how they even got away with that, because like they have laws about like not using like chemical weapons. This is literally a chemical weapon, you know?
Yeah. But I mean, yeah. So I mean, but I that's when I mean, I guess you could say I even questioned my reality at a young age, because I looked at like
All the
things and I
time.
was like, this death doesn't seem right. Like, it doesn't seem normal that we have to like die, and like it's painful, and like, you know what I mean? It's just weird to me. It's just weird. And then you don't see the person ever again. I mean, like, it's cool that you're in touch with David, but like me,
Yeah, David.
you know,
Oh my God, a lot.
My dad died. My ex-girlfriend, one of my ex-girlfriends, I've had a lot of girlfriends, but like one of my ex-girlfriends died. You know, I've had countless people die, and none of them have reached out to me. So
Isn't
I'm
that
still
weird?
skeptical of the afterlife. But then I meet someone like you, where you've had, you know, you give me hope because you've had contact with David. But like, but you know, that when my dad died, you know, I thought maybe he was trying to reach out to me in dreams, but like maybe I was young and I wasn't like, you know. And now I'm worried. I'm worried if he reincarnated. You know, I'm like, I hope he
So
didn't get
I have a
trapped.
different view on that. I have a very different view. So a lot of the stuff to David has like dragged me through all kind. Like he'll be like, "No, you're gonna learn this. You're gonna learn this." I'm like, "No, I don't want to." Yeah, you're gonna learn it. I don't want to. No, oh, okay. You don't want to do it now. I'll come back again, and until I learn it. And like, there's so many times where he'll like drag me through that. I'm like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And he's like, "Nah, you're doing it." And basically, my thoughts on the whole like reincarnation thing, like we are oriented and locked into viewing things as like through time and like linear time. But even though in this timeline, like you could say that your dad potentially could have gotten reincarnated, but in actuality, he's left, he's sort of checked out. But that doesn't mean he's not connected to you or that you couldn't interact with him, because he's outside of this linear thing. He's not linear now. So you could actually still connect with him, or you could actually still contact him. This idea of him being reincarnated and oh well is just like our locked in view of this linear thing. We are so oriented to looking at things through this linear track, like a track on a record, right? And my interactions with David have definitely been very like paradoxical, that he on purpose did this stuff to like, and that I understand now, but like 2 years ago I didn't understand. Like he started doing things back in time. It's like that I've said this movie many times, Life After Death Project, about Ackerman. Basically Ackerman, and this is another time, people can get mad if I say this, like, you don't have to be religious, you don't have to believe in God or gods or any of that stuff like that. If you can believe that, if you like to, but it will be used against you to trick you, okay? But Ackerman, this guy Ackerman, he had his own magazine, he had a magazine company, and he was not religious at all. And yet when he died, there was all these pranks that he pulled on all of his friends, and it even went back through time. So he exited at the point in time that we perceived it as, he exited at that time, but then he went back through the timeline. Actually, he didn't even have to go through. It's like he's looking at it like a track, like you know how a DJ is. You can just see the groove on the record, right? Well, he's just kind of going, oh, let me go back to this point, or let me go back to this point, and then he's moving stuff around and moving things around and doing things and affecting things, even though we didn't perceive it at the time. And it's called retrocausality, right? And so now we're still playing through on that track in this timeline, right? And now he's died, and now he wants you to go through all these jokes and all these pranks and all these funny stunts that he's doing. And in that movie, like, you have to get through the first 10, 15 minutes. It's kind of slow at the beginning. It's on Filmzy, and it's on Roku. It's called Life After Death Project, I think. It's about Ackerman. I'm going to say it. Ackerman, you have to watch this movie. And the reason I know about this movie is because I went through, so this was was 2023. My teacher died, my teacher Bill, and it screwed me up. Usually when people die, I don't know why, I usually don't, it's not a problem. I can handle it very easy. It's just when an animal dies, like my pet or something, or if I hit an animal with my car, I'm a wreck, okay? But humans, I'm like, whatever. People die. I don't know. It's not like I'm insensitive. Like, it's sad. I'll cry in movies and things, Like, I watched Lord of the Rings today and I was crying because Gandalf died. I know he didn't really die, but whatever. It was sad, I cried for that. But, like, my grandparents died and it didn't, like, I thought it was weird. I'm like, why am I not crying? Like, this is sad. But I just felt like, well, it just happens, But when my teacher died, it messed me up. I didn't like that. I was like, no, I don't like this. And I noticed that my teacher, his name is Bill, he was pranking me too. Like, he was doing stuff. He was like moving things around. I could hear there was somebody behind me walking behind me, and I would turn around, there's no one there. And they were just like, oh my God, what the heck? And then when I found out that Bill died and I realized it was Bill, I was like, oh, good grief. And then my friend David died, but I didn't know he died. Okay. And I kept thinking that a lot of things that was going on with me was mostly Bill, which I think was part of the joke. I also had so a lot of times they do things with like humor. If you've ever read like Michael Newton's stuff, he talks about this like LBOs and things. Yeah. I had the weirdest dreams, and it was like I was plucked out of my body and I'm interacting with these beings and they're telling me all this stuff. And there's this one guy and he's like really like laughing and he's flying around and I know these people, I knew them so well. I don't even know how to explain how this is, but it's so real. And then I would wake up in my bed. And then every night, and this was after Bill died, every night all these things keep happening and they come to me and they're telling me things. But then it was like there was this memory block. I was so mad. I'm like, who was that? Who was I talking to? When I was younger, I was very like new age, and I had so many, I even wrote a lot of it down. I had the most mind-blowing things. I had so many things happen. And then by like 2009, I had the weird thing with these light beings, and then everything just stopped because they screwed me up. They just blocked me from doing, I guess, ESP type things that I lived and breathed, and that was my life. That was how I lived. And then it just went away, and it was just like more stuck living like a normie. Like, no more intuition for you. No more ESP for you. No more. You can't do these things anymore. And it even ruined my art. It ruined my life. It ruined my relationship. Everything. And then I just had to go through life just more like regular. I'm not a regular person, to be honest. I'm not a normie at all, but like more, like everyone else, And it sucked. It sucked. The economy crashed, and everything just got worse and worse and worse. And I was just not happy. And I had suffered a lot of bad side effects of forced positivity. I'm very much against forced positivity. I was so terrified of having a bad thought, being angry, being sad. I was so terrified because it was like in the new age, especially like in the Bush era and the Obama era, like they made you think like you were not a good person or you weren't worthy or something was wrong with you and you're being negative, right? But then I'm also a logical person, and a lot of things just didn't match, and then it caused me to suppress my feelings, and it was very toxic. I had not been aware that, and I also was the oldest in my family, so I had to take care of my brothers. I took care of my mom's friends' kids, my neighbors' kids. I was just a kid myself, and I hadn't been aware that I had so much suppressed anger, pain, just all kinds of things. So I was in my 20s, and then I had my own kid, and I wasn't just not aware that I had this baggage. Okay. And then that's kind of when I started to know my friend David, who showed me other ways of looking at it. He was like, well, actually being angry isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, I know if you ever watch Jimmy Dore's show, one of the lines he often says is, if your hair is on fire, you should act like your hair is on fire, not act like everything's fine. Do you know what I mean? And he got me to embrace sort of these other sides of me, which I know a lot of people don't like. sometimes you have to be this, you have to be angry. Sometimes you have to be sad and you have to express it. And there's many ways to do that. And if I didn't have my friend in that point in time in my life, I'd probably be dead. Do you know what I mean? Like I was just so, I was just like broken. And he also got me to be more like, he would say things like, you're smarter than this, you know how to do your research, do your due diligence. But then he was also very like expressive. He was a very expressive person. Okay. David was like he was like a genius, literally. He was so incredible that he was very aware that he was so much different than other people, but he would oftentimes like conceal the, and there was just so much to him. And the weird thing was I could relate to that a lot because I was the same way. There was just so much of me that I could relate to in him. And we were just buddies like that. He was just my buddy, I interacted with him every day, all day. And if I had an opportunity to spend time with him, I would have done that. It just never happened. It was mostly just us. Like I lived here or in China, and he lived generally in like Connecticut or New York. And or sometimes he was in Germany before, like a year or two before he passed. But we never got to like be in person together, but we talked on like Skype, we talked on the phone, we talked a lot of times on Facebook and emails. And towards the end, because he had a disease called Job's disease, which is extremely painful. And he was one of the ones who lived, like he lived to be like, what, 64? It's very rare. So he must have been like in extreme pain when he passed. There was a lot of things he told me before he passed. And I have regrets. Like I wish when he talked to me in Twitter because he would block me and unblock me a lot. He's very moody towards the end. And I wish I had given him my phone number when he was in like Berlin. I just so regret that I didn't. And I wish I had given him my phone number when he came back too. And I just so regretted it. But because I was doing a lot of the research I was doing, that's kind of like what made me more open to interacting with him, because I was very afraid of it. There was other things that was happening even like before he died that I now understand as him, that he died at one point in time, but he was doing things in the timeline while to me was in the past. And it's very paradoxical, but like to me, it proves to me that time isn't actually real. I have experienced so many of these kinds of interactions with him. And I even wrote down the dreams, like, because some of them I couldn't remember, but I wrote down as many as I could. Like, they were so weird, like, so strange. And a long time, I'm like, where's David? And I was like, I wish I could talk to David about that. But it was him. And now that I understand a lot of his symbols, because Mark and even like Howdy McCoskey and Wayne Bush, they would talk about like a lot of these like near-death experience, because I had my own near-death experience, and LBLs and just certain other kinds of, people like they leave their body kind of experiences, where they would be met with some entity who would change their appearance to look like their relatives or their loved ones or religious figures, or sometimes it's even like Elvis or something, right? Like weird stuff. And that we know that people could change their appearance and trick you. And that I've definitely had dreams where I felt like I was talking to somebody who didn't look right, but presented themselves as someone I loved. But when I woke up, I thought, that's not really them. I don't think that's them, because it's just something, it's someone else, and it's like fake. I had this kind of thing a lot. And what happened was I had been doing different kind of experiments with time and sending messages to people, especially during the pandemic. There were events in my life that did not go very well, and because there's different kinds of branches of reality, because like if you talk about like quantum physics and stuff, where it can like branch and you're actually experiencing multiple versions of yourself in different timelines, right? And so what I would do was I would think about, like, let's say something bad just happened, like I broke my foot or something. Then what I would do is I would tell my younger self, or myself before it happened, and I would send a message to myself and I would say, okay, don't do this because it's bad, right? Or if I went through a bad experience, but then it turned out for like a good reason, I would send a message to myself and I would say, oh, don't worry about this bad thing. It's going to be okay. And I remember even before the pandemic started, messed up things happened. Like really, like my computer got hacked so bad. It was so horrible. I lost everything. This happened right before lockdown. I had my film. And I was just devastated. I had just completed it and I lost everything. And a lot of stuff I was just about to back up and it all got destroyed. I mean, it was such a vicious hacking, and I have had hacking problems so many times. And when it happened, I should have been devastated because I had put so much work and so much effort into so many things. But I just didn't have it in me to feel pissed off, even though it had already happened to me before. This was pretty bad. But I had this feeling like, no, I think it's going to be okay. And it just wouldn't go away. And I felt like, oh, I guess I'll just go with it, you know? And so I thought, well, I could do other things with my time. So I sent my computer off to the place to get repaired, and it just was stuck there trying to get repaired. That was in November of 2019. The pandemic, people didn't even take it serious until until March of 2020. And during that time, I started having like a lot of sort of intuition type things happening to me, but it was sort of connected with my logic. Like I would feel something and then I would sort of like mentally scrutinize it. And then I have this ability, I've cultivated this ability in my life. I use my mind to argue, counter. I use a lot of Socratic method, Socratic method, which is like Socrates' style of logic, which is basically logic or rational thought. And then I also can use where I can think backwards, sort of similar to like algebra. I can also put myself into the shoes of someone else and I can understand them and I can solve a problem, or I can figure out like, why does this problem keep happening? And I will actually get very accurate conclusions, or it's basically like algebra when you have a variable in a calculation, like a letter that represents something you don't know and you're trying to figure out what that letter means, right? And I would do it like that. And I started figuring out things. It's because I kept having these same problems. And then I would say, it's like this, or it's like somebody's doing this thing or whatever. And then it became proven because my friends were like, no, it's probably this or it's probably that or da-da-da. It's just like that. And then there were these guys who admitted to doing what they were doing, and I figured that out. Not only did I intuitively feel it, but I also used my logic to check it, right? And then when that happened, and it was a whole series of events, and I actually had to confront people on like Reddit and everything, but it proved that I was correct. I had solved it, and I found I figured out what the problem was twofold. I logically figured it out, and then I also intuitively figured it out. And then I thought, well, if I was that good and that accurate, what else am I not paying attention to? And that was when the thought popped in my mind of, oh, maybe I should look into this like virus thing. And that's when I started doing my research, and I found out there was something going on with that. And I could not get anybody to listen to me at the time. And at the time, it was deadly. Although, weirdly, it didn't kill everybody. So that's another weird conundrum. It killed some people, but not others. I knew lots of people in Philly who perished in 2020 and 2021, as well as my neighbor who's still sick to this day and has to be on oxygen because of the virus in 2020.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not kidding. Like, I get it. A lot of people don't believe, like, they don't believe it. That's because there's like different strains of it and whatever. I understand all the different points of view because I've investigated them all. Okay, I have read I can read medical data. I can read medical reports. I understand these things. And so even if somebody doesn't believe me or doesn't agree with me, that's okay, because I know all the different views on that, and I'm so tired of it. But what happened was a lot of other strange things kept happening. And I would even go places, and I swear there was somebody there. There was somebody there, and I could always feel like it was a tall person who was very heavy, and I felt like it was male and it was watching me a lot of times in all the places I was going. And David, his mother had some kind of weird sight where she could like look outside of herself and go, I guess it sounds like remote viewing or whatever, but I kind of wonder if maybe he had that. He had also talked about, before he died, he was on his podcast with David Levitt's wife. I can't remember her name at the second. And he fully disclosed a lot of things, some of the things his mother did, but also his own experiences. And he was very critical of a lot of contactee people because he'd been around lots of them, and a lot of them acted absolutely loony. Okay. And he wanted a more, he wanted like standards. He wanted like, we need to be able to, you know, not act insane, and like it shouldn't be about like your feelings. It should be like some objectivity, which for logical people that makes sense. I'm like that, he's like that, or whatever. Whereas other people are more like feeling people or whatever. That's a whole other side of things, right? And then there's a lot of problems with like sensationalism, and so he didn't like that at all. He didn't appreciate that at all. Now, that's not to say that he couldn't be sensational for art and music and other things, but to get to the truth of something, you can't sensationalize it, because now it's exaggerating. Now it's like too many liberties with things, you know? And he, a lot of times he would tell me to not talk about certain things. Like when I was on Facebook, he's like, don't tell people that. I can think about certain things at a very high speed. And I remember writing stuff on Facebook, my Facebook wall about that. And then he'd DM me. He'd be like, delete that. You shouldn't let people know that. Which says to me that he probably did that too. There's a lot of things, like as time has passed on, that I have come to understand that he probably, the reason why we were buddies like that was because we're very, very similar. And when you look into like Robert Monroe's stuff, like what he talks about in his books, he talks about certain kinds of beings that have like psi power or whatever. And he even went on this like journey with his friend he called his Inspect. And he met certain beings on the earth who were doing things, who apparently had like psi ability. And that when they were in the presence of other humans, because it's like our psi ability is like capped or stunted, or like there's either a cap on it, or there's some kind of like it's just stunted and it hasn't grown or it hasn't happened, right? And that some of the beings here that have the psi, like they kind of like tone it down, or like kind of cap it so they don't affect other people. But regular people in the presence of someone who has psi, is what they called it, is that they would get confused and think it was God, right? And this is where things get really funny for me, because my interactions with my friend remind me of like old kinds of stories of what eventually became like mythologies. Like a lot of myths and legends were based on people who really lived. Like in ancient China, there's a guy named Zhonghui, and he's known for like eating ghosts or quelling ghosts. He's like a ghost hunter, and he would get rid of ghosts. But it was based on like a real person who really lived. I think he wore like a leopard skin or something, and he was like a shaman guy. But then after the eons passed, he became like a god. And there are many ancient gods or bodhisattvas or whatever who were just people like us. And this was kind of the funny thing with David, was he always says, I'm just a human. I'm just a human, right? And he wasn't just a human, though. It's kind of like Bruce Lee would say things like, if I told you I'm good at this, you would say I'm arrogant. But if I tell you I'm not that good, he'd say, now you know I'm lying, right? And that was the cool thing about David, was he had this wacky sense of humor. He was very funny. and we liked, things like goofy cartoons and weird old movies and weird, like, just varieties of music and stuff. That I recently, people have been complimenting me on music I've been finding, which shocks me because usually people would like sneer at me for listening to different kinds of music. I think it just means the crap that's peddled today is just junk. Or people have, like, how many times can you listen to the 80s music and then be like, isn't there anything else? Or pick it. There's other decades, right? But like, if you've already heard the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, you don't really like to let us live on the radio today. And that's no diss to people who, it was their dream to be a pop star or whatever. But like, people aren't really singing, people aren't really dancing, and that's unnatural. Another weird thing with David was he would, I didn't even know he died yet last year, and I kept getting these weird like nudges. It was like something was saying like, hey, why don't you sing? You like music, why don't you sing? You like the song, you like the lyrics, you like singing, why don't you sing? And it was just the weirdest thing, like this nudge, like, just sing. And I used to do it all the time when I was a kid. I used to sing all the time. And so I just stopped fighting it, and then I just started singing. And when I went to the chiropractor, they'd be like, oh, that's cool that you're singing, Another one was like to dance. Like, this is natural for human beings to do. Human beings should be dancing. Human beings, naturally, that's the thing you're supposed to be doing, is dancing and singing. But how many people actually dance and sing? That's really sad. It's very sad. Even David, he would make jokes about video games. There was a video game called Guitar Hero, and he would make jokes about it, that for the same price, you could buy a real guitar and actually play music and learn it, and it wasn't that difficult.
I remember Guitar Hero. I would play that, but only for a little bit. Like, and then you're right. You could play a real guitar. It's a good point. Oh shit, we better get going soon. We've been going for 2 hours and 20 minutes. Wow. I got 3 shows tomorrow. I got to do 4. Plus I got a meeting in the morning. Holy shit. Like, I got to meet with Gina tomorrow about the conference. And then I got 3, I don't know. Let me see. I got 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 4 shows tomorrow. I don't know how I scheduled so much, but I did. I don't know. I like to stay busy, but maybe sometimes I overdo it.
I know what it's like. I know what it's like. So I'm the same way. I had this conversation with Mark. It was like a week ago or something, and I was like, if you think I'm pretty hyper, you should see what Rob's like. I was like, I talk to Rob pretty frequently. And then Michelle is super hyper. Like, she's just wow. So I hope she's okay.
Maybe that's because of what the way we grew up. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I just know that I am so much extra. There's certain things that I do that people don't know how to handle me sometimes. I remember I went to UMass Boston in 2016, 2017, and I was in an English class. And for part of the presentation, I doodled. I actually have it. You can download it. I doodled a little graphic, and I slapped in some color, and I didn't think it was that good, but it just made the point to what I wanted. And when I made my presentation, the entire class was just shocked. And then the not only the teacher, but the guy who was the assistant teacher, they were like, "You did that?" And I was like, "Yeah." I mean, I didn't think it was that good at all. I was just like, whatever, that serves its point. And they're like, "Yeah, you should definitely keep up with that." I'm like, "Gee, okay, gee, thanks." But it was just, it blew people's minds. And to me, it's just what I do. I do art. I just do stuff. I research, and I feel just like, it's weird because David's the same way. I feel like a lot of the stuff I do, other people could do, but as I'm getting older, I don't know. Maybe it's just different. I'm just different, So
I mean, you're different in a good way, though. Like, you're good. I like you. I consider you a really good friend. I really do. I enjoy talking to you. This is so much fun. Like, honestly, I really enjoy this. And you're like an East Coast person. So you remind me of like people I grew up with.
Mm-hmm. I know I have the Philly accent. When I talk, it comes out, especially when I get like emotional. Oh my, yeah, it comes out.
Do you really?
It does. When I get very emotional, I talk so Philly, like especially like '90s Philly. Like I sound like I'm like Will Smith or something. Oh my goodness. Here in Massachusetts, like they have a totally different accent, but especially when I get really mad, oh my god, you can definitely hear it. It's so funny. Like Tina Fey. Like I kind of sound like Tina Fey or whatever. It's freaking weird.
Yeah.
Although I don't say things like they pronounce water funny. They say wooder.
Water, yeah, I know. I couldn't get over that when I went to Philly. I was like, why do they do that? Like, I gotta ask you real quick. What do you think is going on with Kensington? Like, do you think that's they're like? Do you think that's done on purpose to like,
I feel like it definitely is because well, that's a long conversation. Philadelphia, a lot of people left in the 70s because of like, civil rights and stuff. And it's funny because my mom got stabbed. And so she for a long time had like a chip in her shoulder over that. Like she was like, she had a grudge against the city because some guy stabbed her because of like race riots. And yes, it was a black guy. I don't have that fear, but a lot of people in her generation, like when they're like driving on the street and they see someone on the corner or on the sidewalk that's black, they lock the door and put the window up, which I understand why that, but there was no reason that the civil rights had to go down as badly as they did. That was also like set up that way. Now moving forward, a lot of the people who had moved to the city were not accepted in the suburbs, so they had to live in the city. And I'm friends with so many people in Philadelphia. I don't know if you know this, but most people in Philadelphia have a tendency to be black. And I love all those people. I just love Philly so much. But as time has gone on, because it's a historical city, it's like prime real estate, businesses want to go there, rich people want to go there. All of a sudden, they want to gentrify everything. So it doesn't surprise me that the places that need the most funding also somehow have a drug problem. And knowing a lot of the things like someone like Michael Rupert and various other journalists who have mysteriously perished under weird circumstances have exposed these things, that stuff doesn't surprise me at all, especially since my grandfather was a very famous cop in the Rizzo era in Philadelphia. His name was Johnny Dio. And he even used to tell me like weird, screwy things about how the government was. And he was very disgusted about corrupt cops. He hated it. He hated it very, very much. And it doesn't surprise me at all. They probably just want that area, the property, to put wealthy people there. You know what I mean? A lot of the terrible things going on in the world is because the wealthy have rigged a lot of the system, and they want to just they don't want to have freedom and equality and whatever. They want to be their privileged class above everyone else. And I have so much diligent research, a lot of which I was also taught by my friend David, and it just very much seems that way. I feel like that's part of why he was very depressed when he passed away, because he did so many things, and he taught. So he was a professor, like he was a teacher at Yale. He taught a lot of people a lot of things, but even himself, in many of his career endeavors, he would oftentimes, like if you're a nice person, you're a good person, you have a tendency to think better of people. And then you come across people and find that they're fake or find that they're lying, right? And I'm not trying to be like negative and boo-hoo and whatever, but like that's a shocking thing I've gone through myself many times. There were so many things that he talked about, that he experienced, that when I heard that, I thought that's messed up. That's crazy. Like all these things happened to you? And he's like, yeah. And then as I got older, I started experiencing the same kind of messed up things. And it really does feel like this reality is rigged, and that there's like different factions of something. Like it's like everyone's like a character, like they're being played against each other, and I can't unsee it anymore. I've seen people that I knew, that I grew up with, they seemed to be very awake and aware when they were younger, only to sort of like fall asleep at the wheel and become completely indoctrinated into things that they were against when they were younger, and I knew them. And it happened many times over. I've seen this especially happen like with men. A lot of times it happens by the time they hit 30. They start to kind of become set in a certain way, and then it's very easy to sort of manipulate men into doing things, even against other people, especially if it has to do with their paycheck, right, or how they're making money or their status. But I've also seen women turn against me as well at the drop of a dime. Like, oh well, this group of people I think might benefit me better. So who cares about the 10 years of friendship we had? And I'm gonna marry this guy, and you're nobody, and blah, blah, blah. It's a harsh reality. I would like everything to be love and light and all that stuff, but we live in this world. We don't live in the good world. We live in this world, and that doesn't mean that you can't try to make some things better. But I have many times gotten really good results with things only to have something else come in and screw it up. But that's not to say that you can't still affect it too. Like, so there's many different, like, when you read like the book like Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu or Lao Tzu, depending on how you want to pronounce it. I pronounce it the Mandarin way. And he explains a lot of this stuff. There's still ways around things. There's still ways you can like navigate and try to, find, like, it's the way. The Tao is the way. And you don't know. So I'm hoping that this is my last life. I don't ever want to do this again. And like I said, when David would appear to me in my dreams or other things, he would not appear as how he looked when I knew him. He would appear to me in different versions of himself or some different disguised version. And once I started to understand these motifs and symbols and stuff, I understood it was him. And he does this in not just my dreams and things, but he does this in my real life. There's certain symbols that will show up when I go places. I'll see these certain things. Even my feed in social media, hey, a lot of times we'll send like music my way or movies, videos, links. It's funny how they do that. And there's so much people who study these kind of like, what do you call it, after death communication things. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe your father just it is probably around. You just you just don't know how to like read it. But I also had like, just like you, where I knew people who passed and I never got any kind of signs or signals or anything. And when I had the incident with those light beings that messed me up, my life was a certain way, and then it just stopped. And then nothing. It was like, and I thought I was crazy. I thought I lost my mind, or maybe I was delusional, or maybe I made it all up. And I was trying to make sense of things, and there were so many things that I totally remembered very clearly, and then it just wasn't happening anymore. So now it's just a different version of those kinds of things. It's not the same as like when I was, I don't know, a teenager in my 20s. Now I'm in my 40s and I'm experiencing things differently, very differently. But even I think it was Robert Monroe. He didn't even start doing his kind of like out of body stuff until he was like maybe 45 or 46 years old. So I guess anything could happen at this point. For all I know, like you never know, we could affect things to change it for the better. Or it could just kind of go like this. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
I hope
I think this was a historic podcast. This was really good. I think we did a really good one. I mean, because of you made it really good. Honestly, like, do you want to tell people how they can, or you want to promote anything or anything like that? Or
nah, I mean, I might do if people like this video. They could leave comments. I have been thinking about doing some video blogs again on my channel. My channel is just Black Uni Gryphon. I think it's spelled here correctly, actually. And I have other channels that I've made that I thought about making content and putting it on there. There's certain stuff I want to do. There's certain things, and there's a lot of these topics or whatever. I was scared of doing it in like my artist name, but I've done so many things with you now that I don't think I can like hide it anymore. That I don't know if I'm going to do it under a different brand name or what. So, like I have had a lot of people ask me about like some of the music I was listening to. I thought about making videos about some of the music. I find that this has been very positive. Right now, my channel has tons of Pokemon Go everything on it because you don't get punished for that. But I got punished many times on YouTube. I got demonetized and everything. I know that pain. I was shadow banned on Facebook. I was shadow banned on Twitter, and I was shadow banned on Twitch. I have had a hacker problem. I have to this day never understood why. The main reason I used to get punished was because I was a burner, which is I used to be a Bernie Sanders supporter, and I'm very logical. And I was connected to David, who I know also got screwed over a bunch of times. But Bernie Sanders, he became a turncoat, and I don't want anything to do with him anymore. And he turned on all those people who volunteer, all those people who knocked on doors and did all this stuff for him, and he just betrayed everybody. And I got punished for supporting that guy. Wow. So then I started doing Pokemon Go. Yeah, and then I don't get punished for that. In fact, that got me views. That got me saved me. There's so much I could talk about Pokemon Go. Pokemon, the reason I don't have depression anymore, I had clinical depression a very long time. And so long. And then I went back to playing Pokemon Go in 2018, and I haven't had depression ever since. It was like when I became this rebel, I rebelled against this reality. I was like, screw this reality. And I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play Pokemon Go. How crazy is that? I'm a top player.
Check out this comment. This is from the Subtle Realms. He says, "Thank you for your inspiration, Black Uni." She says, "You are that's a she. Oh yeah, she. So she says, "Thank you for your inspiration." She says, "You are lovely."
Oh, I watch her channel. I watch her videos. I like her. She's an artist too, and she's a deep thinking person. She's a deep philosopher-like thinker person. I am so not articulate. It's Mercury retrograde shadow effect, whatever. Anyway, she's very philosophical, and she's a deep thinking person. I recommend her channel very much, actually.
Let me look her up now. I'll sub to her channel.
Really good. Really good.
The Subtle
Realms. Yeah. She has always got a lot of thoughts and feelings, and she's very introspective, and that's what I like.
Your channel, Subtle Realms.
Yeah, she has this rebelness to that too. So yeah, I'm not a Billy Idol kind of a rebel, but there's certain things where I'm kind of I don't want to do this. I don't consider myself a spiritual person, right? I'm just my own thing. I don't want to be in the box. I don't want to be in the tunnel vision. And a lot of the people associated with Mark have this kind of certain rebellious kind of something about them. And Dan from Overwatch, he's really advanced. Overwatch project, super advanced. I love his stuff because he'll be like, this is my playlist, this is what I'm talking about, but you need to do the work, and you have to do the research, and you have to go through it. And I love that because he'll make it easy for you, but you still got to do it, kind of thing. If you think that this stuff can just be spelled out and just be copy paste or whatever, it's not like that. You got to actually think. You actually got to do the work, kind of thing. It's not I don't think things like faith is enough is good enough. You have to actually grapple with things. You have to actually comprehend the things, and there's many different ways to look at something. Another one is black and white in the West. People often associate black with evil or bad, and white with good, but that actually can be completely the opposite. It's something I've toyed with in my art over and over again. I have written poems about it and stuff. That sometimes something that seems like an angel could actually be, you know, a really bad entity, or something that seems like a monster that's black. When you look at it, it's actually not. It could actually be a good thing. And I even had a dream about this recently. I told Michelle about some of it. So,
Wow. No.
yeah.
Well, we'll have to do a part 2. Yeah. I got to go to the bathroom bad. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. And thank you, Black Uni. You're awesome. And I could talk to you forever. And thank you everybody for tuning in and watching all this time. We went 2 hours and 40 minutes. Holy shit. I got to go to the bath. I got to pee so bad.